Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow is underway from 6th and Peabody with EHA Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. The Monday edition, coming off of a college football weekend with upsets, big leads, no more, and some classic games. Plus, the NFL, a lot of teams as the underdog, they are victorious in Week 6. Glad you're with us. Big show planned. Chad, good afternoon.
Do we have a quarterback controversy in Cleveland? I think would be one question I have, considering upsets around the league.
Not so sure about that,
given by
defense.
Pay also.
The pay.
That, probably not much of a quarterback controversy, but a wild and fun weekend across the country. Good to be here, Hutton.
Mike Veeck is going to join us coming up in an hour. The Saint of Second Chances is the Netflix documentary featuring Daryl Strawberry. And we have the former MLB exec and author who will join us about that and much more coming up in an hour. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I watched this thing, and I started thinking, am I going to be into this or not? And 5 minutes in, it's one of the best pieces of sports material I've seen on film in the last year. It is fantastic. Jeff Daniels narrates it. Charlie Day plays Mike Veeck in the documentary, in the dramatized portions of it.
Okay.
People remember the name Bill Veeck, the former owner of the Chicago White Sox. Mike is his son that came up with the idea for Disco Demolition Night that blew up in his face, and violence happened, and it eventually cost his dad the team. So after he went into exile for a while for this idea, he came back with all of these crazy promotions for minor league baseball. Mike Veeck is the inventor of the luxury box that you see across sports now. Incredible story, and this is going to be an amazing interview. One of the greatest personalities you will ever witness in sports. I am not overselling this. This guy is this terrific and has brought this much to sports, and more people need to know about the Veeck family.
You can say he led to the Savannah Bananas, in a way.
Savannah Bananas, his team was in St. Paul, the independent league team that he started that ended up selling out every single game. He is the father of the minor league baseball promotion, and in turn what became the Major League Baseball promotion with his work with the White Sox. Fascinating story. Can't wait to talk to Mike.
And Petros Papadakis joins us in the final hour of the show. Played at USC, now with Fox Sports, doing great college football analyst work, and, of course, on the radio as well. He knows the Trojan program very well. We'll dive in on what happened against Notre Dame on Saturday night. Chad, the Week 6 across the league yesterday that played out, it wasn't about great quarterback play. It's normally known for all the quarterbacks. Not on Sunday. It's about defense and the dominant play of the defense against some pretty good quarterbacks. You mentioned Cleveland. Cleveland's win wasn't about Watson or not having Watson, but going with P.J. Walker. It was about the domination that Cleveland Browns defense put on Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers, and behind Jim Schwartz, who's the best offseason hire of any assistant that was made. Stefanski got a great defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz and turning that around. Teams are winning, but they're not putting up a ton of points. They're keeping points off the board. Through 6 weeks, right now, here are the offensive touchdowns that have been scored. 394 of them in 2023. In 2021, through 6 weeks, compare 394 to 502. 502, and it's dropped down to 394. 425 offensive touchdowns a year ago at this time, compared to how few we've seen in the first 6 weeks of the season. Defense matters. It's still about, do you have the quarterback at the end? But the talent distribution across the league is the NFL model that crushes. So many one-possession games in the fourth quarter, and in this case, defenses are getting stops when they really have no business doing that, Chad, because the rules are stacked against them. The Jets beat the Eagles, and the San Francisco 49ers, they fall to Cleveland. And now we have no unbeaten teams at this point, everyone at least with one loss. And it was a dominant day where you see Mahomes and Kelsey, they continue to make headlines in Kansas City. Of course, what Miami's doing is something we haven't seen in the NFL in 7 decades at this point, going back to the 50s. But right now, it's more like a early 2000s, late 90s defensive style where quarterbacks don't have much of a chance. The Texans win because of their defensive play. The Bengals as well. They beat the Seahawks by shutting them down. I'm surprised that in 2023, we're seeing the scores as they are, and there are a lot of teams right now with just 2 or 3 wins, and that's because they're running up against some buzzsaw defenses to begin the year.
It is oddly, Hutton, when you look around, oddly refreshing to see defenses rule the day again in a lot of situations, while simultaneously probably a little bit disturbing for the league because they set these rules to free up offenses and quarterbacks to be the stars of the league. And when you see quarterbacks dropping like flies, that's really disturbing for the NFL, for their television partners, for ownership, for everyone. Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey going down, huge deal when players like that of that ilk get injured. But make no mistake about it, it's when the quarterbacks start to fall, that's when owners in the league gets really nervous. So I find myself watching games and thinking, man, this is a refreshing throwback where defense truly matters. Defense has a shot. Not only do they have a shot, they're dominating some of these great offenses and quarterbacks, while also thinking in the back of my mind, the league must hate this. The league must hate this shift towards dominating defenses, even though I may like it.
5 teams that entered Week 6 with fewer victories than their opponent ended up winning in Week 6. And 6 weeks into the season, again, no unbeaten teams, and that is surprising given the fact that we saw what San Francisco is doing on the scoreboard and what Philly's capable of. Moving down the line, you mentioned the quarterback play and the injuries. It's not like they took out the pass rush where you can't hit below right at the knee or just below the waist. You can't hit someone hard in the pocket now. You also, as they're releasing the football, can't even put a fingertip on the helmet. That's how much they're protected. But we saw 5 quarterbacks go down in what was a tough day, Chad. Justin Fields went out with a thumb injury. Ryan Tannehill out in London with an ankle problem that he suffered last year, and he's getting many test results and second opinions as they have returned back to Nashville today. Trevor Lawrence with a knee issue. Jimmy Garoppolo. Raise your hand if you've heard this before. He's injured and left the game. He had to go to the hospital with a back injury. And you also had Baker Mayfield. He's the only quarterback of this group that returned to the game. He had a hand issue and ended up finishing for the Bucs in a loss. You're right. It's not a great result for the league if these quarterbacks are down and you have to go to the backups. But the strong ones are dealing, but when they run up against some of the top defenses in the league, normally they still get theirs. And in this case, we're just not seeing it this year. It's a lot of sloppy play, and offensive lines, I think, are to blame. A lot of bad offensive line play.
A lot of bad offensive line play. I have to think, are we practicing enough? Are we getting enough cohesion with offenses leading up to the season during the week? There's a lot of rules in place now about amount of practice and everything else. I don't really know the reason, but offensive lines are bad. Quarterbacks are banged up. I hate it for Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't know how much more. If this is another serious injury, the back injury, I don't know how much longer he can play. Every season it is something different with him, which is unfortunate. And
Hoyer comes in, and the Patriots end up losing to one of their former quarterbacks. Faced 2 of them yesterday. Lost to the Raiders late. And the Browns over the 49ers, you mentioned who was injured for them, that McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. But, Chad, against San Francisco, the Browns held them to just 3 of 12 on third down. Brock Purdy loses for the first time in the regular season as a starter. And this was a defense that finished 20th in points a year ago that Jim Schwartz now has going up against a deep offense that had scored 30-plus. And he's held them to 17 points, now 5-1. The Browns are 3-2. The Jets beat the Eagles without Sauce Gardner or DJ Reed at corner. and they still go against Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. A.J. got his. They didn't put up points. 14 points on the board for the Eagles offense that is still trying to figure things out. But the Jets, with Zach Wilson, they win 20-14.
Also a horrific mistake from Jalen Hurts. Fading away, throwing that interception. That's the only way the Jets win, is a defensive, basically the defense turning into offense, and Jalen Hurts.
11 points off turnovers.
As that was just, it was room service. Here you go. Here's the game right there. Try not to drop it. I'm going to throw it right to your chest with plenty of room in front of you to run. That was a horrific mistake from Jalen Hurts and really lost them the ball game in that one because Zach Wilson's been okay. He's been a little bit better. Zach Wilson, the drive before, had a chance to go down and win the game. They couldn't do it. Offensively, got sacked. He was not, if you just punt the ball away, Zach Wilson's not going down and leading a field goal drive to win that game. That was the one way they could have lost, and they lost.
First time in 13 games, or the first time ever that the Jets hold a victory over the Philadelphia Eagles for their franchise. Jalen Hurts now, 7 interceptions this season. He had 6 all of last year for Philadelphia. And the Jets against some top quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. Chad, the Jets defense has 8 interceptions, and they've allowed just 3 touchdown passes to those 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't know that I need to see Mike Greenberg of ESPN celebrating the Jets win from his couch by himself with someone filming it.
You know what they're celebrating, though?
What?
Aaron Rodgers is throwing passes on the field a month after having surgery.
Yeah.
Normally, you don't let a guy on no crutches. You don't let a guy on the turf with fear of like a punt coming down and someone running into him as guys are warming up. But he's out there.
I'll believe it when I see it on him coming back and playing this season. Again, I don't need to see Mike Greenberg celebrating the Jets win on social media, but I am behind this story and this team. I love it. I hope they continue to stay relevant. That's really my only goal. I was going for them going into this weekend for that reason. I think it's a crazy story and a terrific story. I kind of like Robert Saleh acting like a fan on the sidelines at times and talking his talk after the game about how his defense, and he's right, making really good quarterbacks look awful, making them look foolish in these games. And he said, even though we're not winning all of them, defense is getting the job done. I like this Jet story. And Hutton, if we are seeing Aaron Rodgers out there throwing football, as we just saw with that one, if they continue to be relevant and have a shot at the postseason late into the season, I just like the fact that we may be even talking about him coming back at some point.
3-3 right now in the season. And they end up winning a game against Kansas City with the way Mahomes was playing if Rodgers is in the lineup there. Chad, Deion Sanders in Colorado. Massive lead whenever I saw this score on Friday evening. And then I see the score Saturday morning with Stanford winning. What an epic collapse, and Sanders post-game just shaking his head. Less and less to say now in the fight promotion game leading up to the following weekend.
Yeah, and I'm really anxious to see how he handles adversity because let's be clear about all this, all right? Going up to Eugene, Oregon and losing to a really good football team the way they did, there's some adversity there, no doubt. They got housed by a better team, but we knew Oregon was a better team going into that game, and they took full advantage. That's not true adversity. Blowing a 29-0 halftime lead and going, I think, in the last 15 years, that's like 1 in 294 of a team leading by 28 or more points at halftime. The one loss is Colorado in that stretch. That, my friends, that's adversity. Now we get to see how Deion Sanders really responds to that. This is the first game. Would have been Colorado State had they not come from behind and won that one. This is the first game. They are a double-digit favorite in this one at home, and they lose after leading 29-0. True adversity starts now. I don't want to just see how Deion Sanders responds to it. I want to see how this program that was this overnight sensation to start the year responds to this, because I'm looking down their schedule. I saw today it was announced the television time for their game at UCLA. That's a game they're not going to be favored to win. Bowl game, which we thought was a foregone conclusion when they were 3-0, that's no longer a certainty for this team. Really curious to see how they respond and how Deion Sanders continues to lead this group through what now looks like possibly a very challenging first season that we wouldn't have thought 3 weeks ago that would have been the case going into that Oregon game.
Yep, and he's got them as a relevant program where we're responding to a Colorado team that gives up a big lead against Stanford.
They're doing a parody of him on SNL.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm watching on Weekend Update with Keenan Thompson as Deion Sanders. So he's still a superstar. He's still a celebrity, but this is legitimate sports adversity now. They just lost to 1-4 Stanford, who, oh, by the way, also has a first-year head coach who's been terrible. And they looked foolish doing so at home.
You know what's interesting now, though? This happened last week, too. Colorado with a win and facing adversity there. Really not much of a headline in recapping a weekend of college football. And that's after 3 straight weeks of domination as far as national relevancy. And they're discussed today because of the giving up the lead and losing. If they give up the lead and end up winning, how much are we talking about Colorado? It's interesting how quickly the shine is off based on the results of the stretch against Oregon and USC.
Yeah, and look, they had Cedric the Entertainer at the game the other night on the sideline. I mean, they've gone from The Rock to Cedric the Entertainer. That's quite the fall already. I'm not sure what the equivalent is next to go to, but that's going to keep dropping, the level of celebrity on the sideline.
Coming up, we've got the alphas and betas, the good and the bad of the NFL and college. Stay tuned to Hot Mic with Under Withrow.
Now, yesterday, in the wake of the Trevor Bauer bombshell outing his accuser as a disgusting liar, I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today, I'm going to continue making that case. What was once born as a push to protect real victims has, in many cases, just like we saw with Bauer, turned into an awful manipulation tactic by immoral women to strip men of their power. And we, as a society, continue to just let it happen. Time and time again, it seems. Such also, as we have seen in the past, the cases of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was on the brink of not being confirmed after being accused of sexual assault stemming from his college years. There was the 3 members of the Duke lacrosse team who were accused of raping a stripper at a party, and former Bills punter Matt Araiza, who was accused of gang rape. These are just 3 examples, all of which were proved to be untrue accusations. Men have been put through absolute torture. They have had massive opportunities stolen from them. Their lives, livelihoods, and reputations devastated solely because they were Me Too'd. Meaning a woman made a claim and it was accepted as a fact, even though in all of these cases, it was nothing but a lie. The believe all women era, no matter what, must end right now. Even Matt Araiza, who was still out of a job in the NFL, realizes the threat of it. Here's what he said after being released from the Bills following his untrue accusations.
It's just the climate of how things are now. Accusations bring so much hate to anyone who decides to stand by the accuser that they were kind of forced to cut me from the team.
Now, don't get me wrong. If you are a true victim, I implore you to find the courage to come forward under any and all circumstances. However, if the behavior with the accused man was consensual, let's say, if there is an ulterior motive, maybe a money grab, a play for attention, then please spare us. Don't take the legs out from under real victims who now will no doubt have become discredited because of stunts like the ones I just mentioned. Real victims should be absolutely furious. Just because a woman says something does not mean it should be assumed as fact. And to everyone out there, be careful. Save those receipts. Finally, I also see no reason to continue a movement to protect women when women don't even take the steps to protect themselves anymore. For example, self-proclaimed feminists all over the country are in favor of having biological men in their bathrooms, in their locker rooms, in their sorority houses, in their safe spaces. And even those who aren't outwardly in favor still neglect to stand up against things like this, despite the integration causing an inherent danger for all women. Look how Virginia dad Scott Smith was treated after he confronted the Loudoun County School Board in Virginia after his 15-year-old daughter was the victim of a brutal sexual assault by a transgender in a female bathroom. So how is this dad going to be attacked when he was standing up for his underage daughter? I don't understand it. Where is the concern for this girl's safety? Isn't this a Me Too concern considering she was sexually assaulted? No, it's not. And that is the problem right here, because you can't pick and choose which girls and women get protection under this awareness campaign. And on the flip side, who can be classified as an assailant?
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hunt and Withrow across the OutKick network. Chad, how was the weekend?
It's good. Good. Gotten a little softball dust up. Nothing new on Saturday. But
typical weekend.
Time heals all wounds.
That means you arrived and coached.
Time heals all wounds. Told you I've become I wouldn't say this now because my team is undefeated, unlike Deion Sanders. But I've become the coach prime. Everybody's out to get me. I feel like I should just embrace the mantra. I've got parents chirping at me during the game.
You got the target. You're going to get everyone's best effort.
I got a lot of tense coaches.
Everyone's reading the rule book.
I'm going to tell you what's tense. We finished the regular season undefeated, and I've got a batting practice tonight because two teams are playing a tournament game tonight to play us to start the tournament. And I've got a very uneasy feeling about my girls being too rested, much like my Atlanta Braves and these Major League Baseball teams with rest. They're playing a do-or-die game tonight, single elimination. So I'm going to go have batting practice to try to keep my team sharp leading into single elimination. And you just know the worst possible feeling is going undefeated all regular season and losing the first tournament game. If we lose in the championship, best 2 out of 3, okay. It's going to be very disappointing based on the season. But losing early in the tournament, it's going to be heartbreaking. But the good news is, Hutton, I don't think my team would care at all. It's a sport for kids. I'm not sure they'd care. Parents would certainly care. I would certainly care.
The next league would start like 2 months later.
Our little girls, they'd get over it pretty quickly.
Jad,
they're resilient, that bunch.
You know what lived up to expectations, much like your season thus far, is the Washington-Oregon matchup. 36-33.
So good.
The final. I don't see a loser in this game, though. I don't know if you feel the same way. But Oregon's going to be in the mix and right there for the Pac-12 championship, just like Washington. They'll both have their opportunity. And now with the injury to Brock Bowers at Georgia, this is a very intriguing final stretch for the college football season. Bowers, a top talent, that goes without saying, but seems like a surefire hit in the NFL from the tight end spot. He's going to have the tightrope surgery. So he's out 4 to 6 weeks on the ankle injury. And that opens the door for a lot of programs to play some sound defense and maybe catch Georgia not at their best at the quarterback spot. And meanwhile, the other conferences looking around going, okay, maybe if the SEC can clip Georgia once and maybe we see what happens in the SEC championship game, maybe we can get 2 teams in. And I saw 2 great teams in the Pac-12 this weekend in that matchup.
Yeah, and look, both quarterbacks terrific, Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. But Penix Jr. he's the front runner now for the Heisman. The
huge
guy
favorite
is
now.
Insane. And I just love the way Washington plays offense, which is so different than you see most teams right now. Strictly pocket is Michael Penix Jr. He's not trying to run the ball much at all. What a great game, great scene that was. I can't help but also be a little bit bummed out thinking, this is a Big Ten West game starting here very soon, right?
Yeah.
And no longer a Pac-12 game between those two. But as long as they keep playing, I guess it's okay.
4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he moves to minus 150 on the line, big favorite now, to win the Heisman currently. And he's going to be featured more because Washington ends up winning that game. Just going back to the prominence of just eyeballs. And again, you're right, Bo Nix, he played well, but Penix is just a step above.
Look, I think Georgia, credit Vandy, they played Georgia better and closer than anyone thought. I thought they were sleepwalking a bit this weekend.
Yes.
But even without Brock Bowers, they're going to get a bye week, and then they're going to play Florida in the cocktail party. Maybe Missouri, I think, is a team that could get them, but that game's at home. Ole Miss at home. I don't think unless Tennessee goes to their backup quarterback, Tennessee's going to have the offense to beat Georgia. They got a really good defense, but even in Knoxville, that's going to be a tall ask. Then they get Georgia Tech to close out the season. So I still look at it and I see a team that could very easily get beat by 2 touchdowns in an SEC championship game by whoever comes out of the West, but still maybe sitting pretty for a possible playoff spot. Depending on losses with the rest of the SEC.
That's right, but maybe not as dominant in the playoff once they get there,
no,
right?
Not at all.
He's not without Bowers. You don't draw the same attention. And again, 4 to 6 weeks with the tightrope surgery where they're trying to get him back fast, and then he's okay. We'll see, but that's not always the case as far as timetables are concerned for a guy who's headed to the league.
This year's Georgia is Michigan.
Yes.
They are just pounding people. They haven't given up more than 10 points on the season. I know their schedule has been pretty remarkably weak to be this deep into October right now, but they are killing folks so far. So credit to them. To me, they look like the most dominant team in college football, similar to the way Georgia had the previous 2 years. But, I mean, still, here sits Georgia with this long winning streak, and they still haven't lost.
Michael Penix Jr., our alpha of the weekend. Others, the Jets' defense. 3 turnovers on the final 7 possessions for Philadelphia. And they hold Philly to 2.3 yards per carry. They got all around and swarmed Hurts and go into a 3-3 record now where there's a lot of just average play in the AFC currently. A lot of teams sitting with 3 wins or trying to scratch, the 4 or 5 with the upcoming weekend. Big moment tonight for the Chargers, for instance. But the Jets are in the thick of it, just like many teams sit right now, and it's because of their defensive effort. And they do it, Chad, without Sauce Gardner, who was ruled out on Saturday just prior to kickoff. And then you also have DJ Reed on the mend. They do it without their top 2 corners. And that's how that defense rolls, is with, on the edge, they can cover one-on-one.
Yeah, they have exceeded every expectation I think we could have had for the Jets defense. I get worked up thinking about, think about Aaron Rodgers now paired with that defense.
Oh, I know.
And what we've seen and what this Jets team could be in the AFC. Now, we've also said the defense is so good if Zach Wilson can just be okay. Moderate quarterback play. Not even middle of the pack, just not the very bottom of the league. This team could still win some games and put themselves in contention for a playoff spot, right? They're starting to get that a little bit more from Zach Wilson, that level of play that they don't need that much from him. They just need for him to make the plays that are there and stay out of the defense's way. They're starting to get a little bit more of it, but I am super impressed with this defense. I knew they were going to be good coming in. I don't think they're right now exceeding my wildest expectations of what they could be, not just as a shutdown group, but a game-changing group. The interception of Jalen Hurts, and they win the game with that play. And I don't think Zach Wilson, if you play it out normally and you punt back to the Jets, that he's going to make the game-winning plays to go down and score points and win. But it was the Jets' defense that did it once again. Super impressed with that group.
Jets get 11 points off of turnovers from the Philadelphia Eagles offense yesterday. The Browns, Jim Schwartz, brought in as the defensive coordinator. He sat patiently and waited for 2 years as an assistant behind the scenes with Mike Vrabel's and Shane Bowen's defense here in Nashville with the Titans. And for good reason, he chooses Cleveland, goes back and has this group and is coaching a defense, Chad, that was 20th in points allowed a year ago. They now have just allowed 7 touchdowns all season. They've surrendered only 7 scores. And they hold the top offense in the league, second to Miami in scoring. There's San Francisco, who's putting up 30 a game, to low numbers, and a quarterback who has never lost a regular season start because of the talent around him ends up falling to the talent opposite on the sideline.
And we haven't even hit bad weather season yet in Northeast Ohio coming off the lake. So imagine what this defense could be as the weather turns colder and conditions get harder for offenses to perform when they're hosting games late in the season.
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz has always been an alpha. He's especially an alpha when he's a defensive coordinator. He is the guy that is not suited to be a head coach, has not had a ton of success. He did get to the Lions, the playoffs, after a long absence as the head coach, but not had a ton of success as a head coach. But Hutton, I feel like pretty consistently is a really good defensive coordinator in the NFL, proving it once again with this Browns team.
To the betas, shall we? Bill Belichick and the Patriots lose again. And they actually performed better than expected. They scored. They put up points. They went toe-to-toe with the Raiders. And I'm watching. They can't even get the perfect passes right. Mac Jones on the final possession that could have led to the field goal. They're 15 yards away from a field goal if they end up having a catch from Devontae Parker. Jones drops it right in the bucket. Perfect throw. And Parker ends up dropping that easy play. And Belichick's just sitting there shaking his head. Starting over in week 6 ended up being a lot like the previous games. Another loss as they still sit with just one win.
There's no way that Belichick can be the guy to start completely over, which now I'm not talking about starting over this year. I'm talking about the franchise resetting and starting over and rebuilding after this season, which is going to have to happen. There's going to have to be someone else in charge of that. It's not going to be Bill Belichick. He is a beta right now. An alpha move for Belichick would be late in this season as this team continues to fall apart to go ahead and announce that you're resigning at season's end, have a nice little 2 or 3 game swan song in New England, and then go coach somewhere else and have more success somewhere else, which could happen. And I think he's going to get another opportunity to coach if he wants. But this thing has fallen apart quickly for New England. And it's one of those situations, Hut, where I look at him and say, I don't know how they turn this around. I don't see the components on this roster.
The Bills
with this
and Dolphins are next for them.
Yeah, or any signs that, if they just do this or put this together, they can really get it going and save Belichick's job. This thing's done. The team is done. And I hope a guy who's been a legendary coach for that organization leaves with some grace at this point.
21-17 the final, and the Raiders win over the Patriots with McDaniels, who beats Belichick for the second time in 2 seasons, and with Brian Hoyer coming off the bench because at halftime, Jimmy G went to the hospital with a back issue. Still can't get the victory. Chad, Deshaun Watson, a beta, because we're pointing to the injury, the shoulder contusion that is keeping him out of practice all of last week, coming off a bye week, and the game prior in week 4 says he can't go in warm-ups after telling the media in the week leading up to the matchup against the Ravens that, I'm going to play. I'm going to be all right. Turns out, no. They go with P.J. Walker, which is a great move, by the way, by Stefanski last week, where he inserts the veteran who's on the practice squad. He goes ahead and says that P.J. Walker is going to be the backup this week to Watson. If Deshaun can't go, Walker is obviously the starter. The veteran presence, instead of going again with the rookie, was a smart move because it kept the locker room focused. And that's a week where they're going up against San Francisco. But they're not going in with their best option at QB. The fully guaranteed money is on the sideline with the shoulder contusion going on 3 weeks now. Timetable can be whatever it is, but the whole timetable started with, I'm playing this weekend. And 2 weeks later, we sit here going, what's the message that's being sent behind the scenes with this? Browns get the victory. Watson wasn't a part of it.
Well, and not only did they get the victory, I mean, they beat a team that, this last week I'm thinking, could this 49ers team go undefeated?
I know.
That's how good this team looked, though. And I asked the question, I don't think anybody batted an eye. I started looking at the schedule thinking, well, they go to Philadelphia. That's going to be tough. They were undefeated, too, at the time. And Cleveland, with their defense, able to beat them. Look, it's not because of P.J. Walker. It's because of the Browns' defense. But he was able to manage a game in which the Browns beat the previously unbeaten 49ers. When Deshaun Watson comes back, I don't think there's front office pressure on him or coaching pressure or any of that. But you better start doing something in a hurry. If you're jumping into a team that's having success with someone else playing quarterback. The onus is on you to keep that team success going, however you're generating that team success. So there is some pressure there for him once he gets back.
49ers had a 17-6 lead in the fourth quarter. Egregious penalty, by the way, on Gibson for San Francisco for unnecessary roughness on a hit to across the middle to Elijah Moore. Wasn't leading with the helmet at all. Shoulder hit. Everyone's saying it was a terrible call. This still goes against San Francisco. And then later on the same drive, Travarius Ward's call for holding where his hand is sliding off of Amari Cooper, and they call him for holding. That's another first down in favor of Cleveland. But nonetheless, Browns get the victory at home in a week where no one expected them to.
The next three quarterbacks that Browns defense faces off against, Gardner Minshew, Geno Smith, Josh Dobbs. Those are the next three opponents for that Browns defense.
Setting up nicely. Final bait of the week of the Tennessee Titans offense. Allergic to the end zone. Can't score. Running 16 fewer snaps per game than the top offense in the league. And they go down to the Baltimore Ravens for a team that also went in reeling to London. The Titans, they're not that team this year, Chad. Coach, player, depth, they're not there.
They look like a poorly coached team at this point. I didn't think I'd be saying that coming into the season.
Overreaction to the weekend next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there, probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself.
I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. You can follow us on social. You can find OutKick on YouTube. Chad in the chat as well. Just search out OutKick and join us there, as well as outkick.com. We appreciate you watching at the site or listening to this great radio partner. Chad, we knew that Columbus, Ohio is the place to go if you want to spend money on a regular season college football game.
And if you want to see gray, gloomy skies and cold temperatures seemingly all year round.
Yeah. Second only
State
to
of Ohio
Dayton.
is for you, if that's what you like.
But we know that because Colorado, earlier this year, topped Ohio State for the highest ticket price in college football for a regular season matchup on average. And that was the first time any program had done that since like 2021, I believe. But this upcoming weekend, we finally get to see the top tier of the Big Ten between Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, however you want to stack them. It's hard because we have seen Ohio State kind of sleepwalk through their schedule. Michigan, unbeaten, dominant, but their schedule is still, hey, show us something so we can gauge where this team really is against the top of college football. We know they're really good. And then there's Penn State, who has won every game by at least 17 points. Penn State, Ohio State this weekend. The ticket prices, as you would expect on the secondary market, at least the asking prices are high. What they end up going for by the time kickoff rolls around, yet to be determined. But, I mean, the average ticket price with fees on SeatGeek, $759 right now. Cheapest ticket you can find to the game is $246 for Ohio State, Penn State.
It's a lot.
For a regular
Anytime I
season
see the prices get that astronomically high for games with huge venues, I can understand when the stadium's smaller or you're in an arena for a big event, those prices going up, and up. But we're talking about gigantic venues with prices like that. Pretty impressive. And those are, I mean, that three-way round robin, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State this year, going to be fantastic. All those games.
Time for Penn State to prove it, right? This is their year to really claim it if they want, based on how college football is stacked right now. Might as well do it. Beat Ohio State. It seems like a beatable Ohio State team. Quarterback play. You've got matchups galore in this. See Aller back on the road, and he's proven he can play on the road in the Big Ten to some degree. The biggest test coming up on Saturday. Chad, time for overreaction to the college football weekend. We go to Davey Hudson.
Guys, another eventful weekend in the world of college football. We're going to go across all major conferences. I've got a few things I'm going to throw at you. You tell me if it's an overreaction or if it's just realistic. And we'll start. You guys talked on the Colorado Buffaloes earlier, but Colorado will not make a bowl game.
Oh, man.
That's an overreaction.
Yeah.
There's like 500 bowl games. They're taking teams with losing records in some cases.
I don't know you still have to have the APR at a certain level?
I don't know what the APR is for Colorado.
I would imagine it's not good.
I haven't heard APR in like over a year.
Well, they take 5 and 7 teams based on APR. Here's their remaining schedule. Okay, they're 4-3 right now. They go to UCLA, loss. Let's add them up.
Well, I have no idea. I mean, okay, we'll add them up.
Okay. No, I'm just giving you my guess on what they have. UCLA, 25th in the country, great defense. I'm going to say loss on the road. At home against 12th-ranked Oregon State, I'm going to say a loss. Arizona at home. Arizona's playing really well. I'm going to say win for Colorado in that one at home. That would get to 5. Then they close out their season at Washington State and at 14th ranked Utah. So they have to win 2 of the following games: at UCLA, Oregon State at home, Arizona at home, at Washington State, at Utah. I'm going to go out on a limb because they surprised me to start the season and say they'll surprise me again and win 2 of those games.
I think so.
Because that is a bit of a surprise, honestly, with that remaining schedule.
And their biggest issues, they're giving up leads. It's not like they're, all of a sudden just nowhere to be found offensively, and they've just, they're just not who they were to begin the first 4 of the season. It's just hanging on to the leads, and they've got enough talent to hang with the next 3, and I think they'll end up being bowl eligible. And then you have the bowls fighting over who gets prime time.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, staying in the Pac-12, I know, Chad, you've been high on the Huskies, so I'm going to add a little bit extra element to this question or statement, but Washington will win a college football playoff game.
Yeah. I think Washington right now, the 2 most impressive teams I've seen in the nation right now that I think if I just said, from what we've seen here, mid-October, who's going to play for the national title? It is Washington v. Michigan. Those are the 2 best teams in the country I've seen so far this year. So I'm going to go on a limb again with my Huskies and say Washington will win a college football playoff game.
And even the naysayers that would have, 2 Big Ten teams or maybe a Texas or Oklahoma, whoever ends up with the Big 12, even if you're just projecting, Washington's now in it over Florida State because they've now got the schedules and the wins to back it up. Yes, I'm with you, Chad. I think Washington's good. They could beat anyone in the country, and that includes Michigan. That they have the quarterback to do it. So, yeah, I'm on board with that. They have the receiving core as well, where it's not just one guy that you have to shut down.
All right, guys, final Pac-12 question. Caleb Williams lost the Heisman Saturday night.
And I think we're going to agree on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. The answer is yes. You have to go so far above and beyond to win 2 Heisman trophies. And I said going into this game, he's probably going to have to go undefeated in the regular season and at least match and probably go over what he did a year ago statistically. Both of those things needed to happen. He wasn't great in prime time. USC's defense was even worse in this game. I think the Heisman Trophy is over for Caleb Williams.
Even if he picks it back up and ends up being a one-loss USC, which we don't foresee. Chad, I agree 100% here because the Heisman voters, by and large, there are many of them who do their job and do it well. They analyze all of college football, and they're actually watching all these games. The vast majority are watching USC for the first time this past weekend, and they probably turned the channel off at some point too. I mean, that's why he's losing the Heisman. It's because the voters who saw a very small snapshot are going to remember that. And he was a Heisman by default. He's very good. Heisman by default last year based on injury to Hendon Hooker and C.J. Stroud not claiming the Heisman against Michigan.
On the other side of that field, talking USC, Notre Dame, but Notre Dame should still be in contention for the college football playoff.
No. They're going to have some, first off, the teams who haven't lost are going to need to drop one. Then teams who have dropped one around them are going to need to drop another one. I mean, look, they've lost 2 games, and one of them was to a Louisville team that followed up smacking Notre Dame around at whatever they call Papa John Stadium now, to going on the road and losing badly to a 1-4 Pittsburgh team. So, no. Notre Dame should not be in contention for the college football playoff. Look, huge win. It's exactly what Marcus Freeman needed. I felt the echoes waking up as I'm watching that game and the reaction from the crowd. Big moment for him in that program. But no, they're not suddenly in contention for college football playoff.
They're
not now, at least.
Not a great team. I thought the loss meant more about where USC is and their deficiencies than what Notre Dame was able to do. They were a home favorite against the unbeaten USC Trojans. And here's the other thing about Notre Dame. I think this year, conference championship games are going to mean a lot more than what we've seen in recent years for the college football playoff. You get that last snapshot, and that would propel several teams ahead of the Irish based on the snapshots we've seen against very average teams that they've gone up against. And USC seems to be one of them. Don't fault Notre Dame for winning the game. I'm not saying that, but I'm faulting them what we've seen previously.
Colin was getting very mad. He thought you were saying that, Hutton. I'll say this about Notre Dame. They looked the part. That's the encouraging part for Irish fans. Their defense especially, they don't look white and slow. They look like a team that can run with anybody. Physically, they look like a high-level college football playoff contending team. Physically, on the field. We got to not have 10 guys on the field on a final play of the game. We got to clean some things up. We can't go to Louisville and lay a big egg. So they're not a college football playoff contender yet, but they're getting there. I believe they are getting there with Marcus Freeman.
Davey, final thought on this. Nick Saban is campaigning for a 2-loss Bama last year to get in. He doesn't get it. You think Marcus Freeman's going to win that argument? Absolutely not.
Valid point to end on right there, guys. I know we started the segment talking the Penn State-Ohio State game, that one coming up this Saturday. But right now, Penn State is the best team in the Big Ten.
No. Michigan. That would be an overreaction based on what they beat UMass by, 63-0.
Correct.
Did I see that? I did like the hat that James Franklin was wearing in the rain. That was a nice change-up look for him. Normally just going with the bald head out there. I like the hat on him. But no, Michigan's the best team in the Big Ten.
My answer is I don't know. I don't know what has happened to the Big Ten where there's a significant drop-off now from 4 to 8, 4 through 12 even, after you get past the top 3. Ohio State's not what they were a year ago. We know that. Michigan seems to be better, but I honestly don't know given their schedule. And Penn State, based on what they've done, I mean, they've won every game by 17 points, and they've faced at least somewhat of a more difficult schedule, even though I'm just putting down the depth of the Big Ten there. They need to prove it, and it starts this weekend. They can beat Ohio State. Right now, though, Davey, I'm taking Michigan, even without having seen the resume.
When you mentioned the big drop from the top 4 down, kind of just...
Top 3, really.
Yeah. Let's add these last 2 questions together. If Notre Dame was in the Big Ten and they won the Big Ten championship still with 2 losses, would that then change your answer about them making the college football playoff?
Such a...
I'm adding a lot.
I don't know. We can get into that. It's just right now there are too many undefeated teams, too many one-loss teams that are ahead of them. If in 4 weeks the world blows up and suddenly all these teams that are undefeated have 1 or 2, then yeah, we can talk about it. Then I don't see it.
I'm trying to picture what the argument would be for Marcus Freeman when Saban is arguing. We have 2 losses on the final play of the game last year. We're Bama. You love us. Let us in, and they didn't. Marcus Freeman's going to argue what? We have 2 losses, and it's on me because I didn't recognize Tim in on the field twice. I can't.
And if they were in the Big Ten, they would already have the head-to-head loss with Ohio State. So Ohio State would have to lose 2 for them to win the Big Ten, to even win their division in that. So, no.
All right. I'm throwing it out there. Next question.
You really want us to say yes to that, but no.
I'm just trying to create a conversation, guys. That's all I'm here for. Texas A&M will have a new coach for the next season.
It's a great question. No. I think that A&M's defense is just good enough to give them 8 wins. And I think 8 wins or 7 wins, while disappointing, trust me, based on what they've paid, especially for that recruiting class, because they've got some NFL talent now on that roster, 7 wins is terribly disappointing for this team. But I think 7 wins probably gives him another season.
I mean, do they get to 7? I mean, that's the thing. Like, South Carolina, after an open week, South Carolina, followed by a trip to Ole Miss. Then they face Mississippi State. They have...
they got to beat South Carolina and Mississippi State. I think for any of that to happen, right? Can we start there?
Okay, so
those are 2 they got to get.
So the 2 toss-ups would be at Ole Miss and then at LSU to finish the season.
I don't think they're beating LSU, especially after upsetting LSU a year ago. I don't think they're beating Ole Miss either, but... It's not going to be easy.
So
they also play Abilene Christian, which would be a win.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I say no right now to this question, but it's not if you lose, it's how. And there's a lot of pressure and a lot of money that's willing to pay the buyouts. And if they finish limping down the stretch here, That Tennessee loss means a lot.
If they fired him before next season, they would owe him $76.8 million. That buyout is still huge all the way into 2027. At that point, it's $39.2 million. So
that's all in a day's work for College Station and the oil money. What's the
I saw Clay write about this at OutKick in his weekly college football column, and he cited the price of barrels of oil.
Yeah.
Said it's over $100 right now, so they have the money. The A&M boosters have the money to pay it out, which I found hilarious. But he's right. They have the money if they want to do it.
Mike Veeck joins us straight ahead, plus headlines and more in hour 2. Top Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Old taste of the Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here on the Monday edition. Hot Mike with Honey Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. Chad, first hour flew by. Coming up a bit later in the show, Petros Papadakis joins us, college football analyst and radio host for Fox. Always brings it. Do it again with him coming up in a little over an hour from right now. And we'll certainly have more headlines and discussion across college and NFL where there's a lot of average teams in the NFL just like they want it.
Yeah.
And the same could be said for college football right now. A lot of average programs with some teams that are finally claiming the top spots, Washington among them, and Georgia remains at the top, but they lose Brock Bowers over the weekend.
Don't we want the same in college football as we want in the NFL? That always fascinates me. I feel like the mindset's a little different in that the college narrative seems to function better when there's this dominant force hanging over everyone that everyone's trying to knock off and not a ton of parity across college football with teams. It's almost like you want to see the big bad. And then in the NFL, it's, those Cleveland Browns knocked off the 49ers, and just goes to show you that parity is king in the NFL, and it's not necessarily what we always want in college football. Also, I think we're talking about possible national championship games. Michigan, Washington, to me, or Washington going on a run, that's great for college football. It's great. It's better than TCU. Their run was great, but TCU getting destroyed by Georgia in the national championship game, not necessarily great for the sport.
You know who's great at promotion and the minor league baseball as we see it today?
In a lot of ways, baseball.
Hell, the Savannah
MLB.
Bananas.
Yeah.
What led to what we're seeing with the Savannah Bananas, we can point back to Mike Veeck, who joins us. The Saint of Second Chances on Netflix, Chad, is something that you have seen, and you've called it what? The best sports documentary that you've watched in the past year plus?
Yeah, Mike, I turned this thing on. Mike Veeck's with us right now. I turned this documentary on. I'm thinking, I'm going to give this a chance. I know the Veeck family name, a little bit of the story, and I start watching, and I'm 10 minutes into it, and I can't stop watching it. It was terrific. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. And let me tell you, the reason you couldn't turn the channel on it is because when you hang around with people like Jeff Momberg and Morgan Neville, that they're so competent at what they do that they can make a buffoon like me look actually serious about something. I don't know.
Well, Mike, you also get the benefit of Jeff Daniels narrating this documentary. You get Charlie Day, who I love on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, playing you in the dramatized version of your life in the documentary. How did all of that come together? How were you approached by this? And how did all these parts come together to make this film?
Well, Morgan and I have been friends for a long time, and I was a great admirer of all of those wonderful Masters series and PBS films he did about music. And so he called me about 15 years ago and said, I just heard you on an interview. I'd love to do something with you. And I'm like, okay, well, let's try to do something about the Saints. And we kicked around, stayed in touch, never came up with anything. And one day my son said to me, you know, Dad, I know you don't care much about the 100 years and the 4 generations, but it's important to me. And I think you should think about not so much each of our careers, but the fact that we've been doing the same thing for 100 years, effectively or not effectively, depending on your point of view. And then once Morgan and I started to talk about that, including my grandfather and my dad, and of course my son, we kind of had a narrative. And the rest, Charlie Day, they didn't say a word to me. They were like, we got a guy. I'm like, yeah, okay, we all got a guy. Never told me. When they told me Jeff Daniels, I said, his voice is like the stitching. There's 108 stitches in a baseball. That's what Daniels did for this documentary. He just kind of knit everything neatly together. And so it was alchemy as far as I'm concerned. They just, I went to therapy for 2.5 years. I'm never going back.
It is incredible because you talked about the way they weave it together with your firsthand accounts of everything, with the dramatized version of it, Charlie Day, with the narration of Jeff Daniels. And a big part of the early part of this film is your family background that you mentioned, the Veeck family history, the over 100 years around the sport of baseball. I am curious, do you think it's something inherent in your DNA that brings out these crazy ideas, that there are no bad ideas within each member of the family? Or is it a standard that you saw yourself trying to live up to with who your dad was and what he was responsible for with the game?
You know, that's really interesting. I appreciate that. It made me stop. And it's obviously, I grew up in a house with 9 kids. You know, they liked so much baseball until the DH was introduced. Mom left town then, but we really, we had fun. We were joyous, and he never stressed money or titles or what you were going to do with your life. It really was to have fun. And I found that tremendously refreshing during the 60s when, we thought everyone had to go to college and everyone had to do this. And so from that standpoint, you'd have been stupid not to by osmosis pick some things up. But it's a craft, and I think as much science as art. And he worked very hard at it. My grandfather worked very hard at it. And so I think that someone in each of our generations just kind of hears the music. And my son Night Train, I think, is going to be better than any of us thought of being. And that's kind of an interesting thing for a father to say, but I have that much belief in his talent. Plus, he has a little restraint, which I'm not certain I ever perfected.
Mike Veeck, our guest on Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Where has the promotion game evolved the most, Mike, for baseball?
I think the NFL has forced us out into the open. And NFL films ruled the roost for so long. But what we need to do is so simple. And that is, we have to make our heroes accessible. We have to be able to figure a way. When I was with the Tigers, it was Trammell's first year of managing. And of course, I was working for my pal, Dave Dombrowski. And we put a player at the end of the dugout after each game, win or lose, to sign autographs for kids. I think that's a great approach. I think we need a fan base, 12 people elected from across the country, men and women who love the game, to advise the commissioner. I think we need, the commissioner's office actually helped make this film. And I never thought they'd get it done because they'd never get the right to use the marks, but they could. But where people in NASCAR talk about my driver, but we don't have that kind of access to players. All the great nicknames have gone because the agents are going, hey, you can't sign $1 million deal if they're calling you Suitcase.
Yeah.
So, I think the fixes for us are easy. But the greatest changes come in the video effects and the things that I think they've done a great job with that. It's just the humanity of the game is not at the forefront where it should be.
You're not averse to a great nickname. In fact, you're not averse to a great nickname as someone's actual name. You named your son Night Train Veeck. Was there ever any pushback from anyone in the family to making this move?
Oh. Some of the people I love the most refused. They called him Will. I named him William Night Train Veeck. William from my father, to be sentimental. But I moved 17 times in the first 11 years of my life. And you, of all people, the two of you, you guys, know what it's like. If you're out on the sandlot, you're referred to as the new kid. And I decided that since my name was just Mike Veeck, that's not very notable. So I was going to have a son who had a name that he'd get picked for any team on the strength of his name. And of course, it came from Dick Night Train Lane, the clothesline, plus he married Dinah Washington. So I figured he had the best of both worlds going for him. And who are you going to pick? Henry to play right field or Night Train? Let's face it.
Night Train every single time. Every single time, twice on Sunday, I'm going with Night Train.
Who's playing second base for you tonight? Night Train? You don't care if he can play.
What was the families will debate, couples will debate over like Robert or Richard. What was number 2 on the list for you? Was there any debate?
Well, the debate came down to what were we going to call it if it was a girl.
Okay.
And then we decided, because of the fact that we'd been heavily influenced by Native Americans. I was born in Tucson. We lived in the mountains of New Mexico. So we thought we'd drop a T and call her Night Rain. Once again, 2 words. So I had cover, but they weren't buying any. My wife at the time was somewhat supportive.
Also,
what does somewhat supportive mean?
On any girls softball team, I'm taking Night Rain over Vanessa or whatever the second place name was too. So you would have won with that one also, Mike. Mike Veeck, our guest here on Hot Mike. Was there ever, with the St. Paul Saints and all the wacky promotions and everything you were able to accomplish with that team, was there ever an idea you said no to? That you said, no, we can't do that. It's too far. It's too dumb. It's too whatever.
Yeah, we, I had loused up the idea of having a pillow fight after a ball game. I did it in St. Paul. I did it after people had a few libations. And, the 2,000 or so who were left, it was kind of serious. And they were settling with their father-in-law or somebody in their family they didn't like. It was a lousy idea. We reintroduced it and did it during a game. During a game, we had a pillow fight in the 3rd inning, and we had 9,600 people. So I was opposed to doing it, but it worked great. Race the Mannequin was one gratefully. And thankfully, I only did it once. It was during my philosophical Sartre period. I thought there was something existential about it. It was just stupid is what it was. So I don't know. I haven't really edited a lot of them out, to my embarrassment.
I'm sure for years and years, people would hear your name and they would remember Disco Demolition Night. I watch this film, though, and I see everything else you were a part of, and I think people who watch it will know you were a part of a lot more than that. Have you seen that change over the years, where you're not just known for that one promotion and that one night, and you're known for so much more because of what you've been a part of?
Yeah, I think, history is forgiving. And I think that after a while, some of the other things are more important. Isla Borders was the first woman to pitch in an all-male league. It wasn't a league of their own. She pitched against men, and I think now that's very important and very timely. And the first blind announcer was simply to demonstrate what people can do. So I think that people have been very kind over the years, because I think we realize that it's a game. These are our games. As much as we care. I mean, my Browns, how that happened yesterday, I don't know, but I don't want to know. I really don't. I don't want to know how it happened. It's magical. But they are our games. And I think sometimes we get carried away. What's going on in the world right now is really serious. Whether or not, my beloved White Sox make a couple of trades in the offseason isn't right up there with world peace. So we have to remember it's fun.
Yeah. Where does the Daryl Strawberry, the resuscitation of his career with your St. Paul Saints, where does that rank on your list of accomplishments as being involved in baseball?
He walked away from a $20 million contract. He couldn't get a gig anywhere. And I was concerned because we had worked so hard to get this family PG rating, and my wife Libby just ripped me a new one and said, you gotta, after all the chances you got, you have to extend it. So in 96, he hits 18 home runs in 29 games. His contract is sold to the Yankees. He hit 3 home runs in Columbus over 2 games, and then he hits 11 with the world champion 96 Yankees. What he did in St. Paul was he discovered that he really loved the game and that the fans were an integral part of the game. And after about 2 weeks there, he came into me and he said, Mike, he said, why is Dave Stevens, a guy who has no legs, so happy? And I said, Daryl, I just think you're unhappy. And I think you have to look at this from the standpoint of people who love you. This is a huge talent that you have. And it's a gift. And it's gone so quickly. And so I think that moment, he realized, as he said, we're not all so important, but helping one another is. And that, I'm proud of that, because not of what happened. We didn't need him to sell tickets, but he rediscovered his love of the game. And I think that's what we tend to forget and what we need to be reminded, how much we need the fans and how much we need to love what we do. And I think that is what happened with Daryl, and the fans made that happen.
Mike
They
Veeck
forgave him.
has been our guest. It's a great visit, Mike. We're thrilled that you were willing to join us, and hopefully we can do this down the road.
Thanks. I look forward to it. What happened with my Browns? Come on, baby.
Amazing.
Follow it. Let's get it done.
Congrats to your Browns, for sure. And everyone watch the documentary.
Yes.
Saint of Second Chances on Netflix. I highly recommend. Thanks so much, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Mike,
good one.
Mike Veeck. Add massive Browns fan to the list of many things on the bio for him. Coming up, headlines including Aaron Rodgers, and there's an expert saying he could return in 2 months. That's next.
The idea that we believe all women is total nonsense. As I told you, my sister, a 25-year prosecutor, made that very clear to not only me, but it's certainly her son, my son, and my nephew Pete. They're all the same age, these boys. But she also warned him of women like this cretin here, this gold diggings clown that decided, I'm going to get my hooks into a big league ball player. I mean, look, big league ball players are dumb sometimes, but everybody's dumb sometimes. And Trevor Bauer, a guy named John Heyman, wrote an article which was titled, Bauer has lost his career, and deservedly so. You'll never hear John Heyman, who by all accounts is a famous baseball writer, apologize. You will never hear any of these fools apologize, because our print media is the worst. Now, we're lucky here at OutKick that we have great people. But the national print media, the dudes that are out there, the Greg Doyles of the world, the John Heymans of the world, the Dana Bembaus of the world, this Molly Knight, who reported that this woman had a fractured skull. That's right. This idiot Molly Knight works for The Atlantic, and she got fired, I guess, I don't know. Molly Knight is her name, not Wright, Knight. She, honest to God, wrote that this girl got her skull fractured. I looked up Molly Knight. Molly Knight is now basically unemployed, and of course, her Twitter is protected. Of course it is. This lady, Molly Knight, is a ridiculous fraud for printing that. It's all in The Athletic. It's in the affidavit. This woman, of course, went cowardly like all writers do when they're wrong. Ain't nothing wrong with John Heyman or Molly Knight coming out and saying, hey, what can I tell you? I got it wrong. But they can't do it. They can't do it because they're little posses that get a little bit of power, and they don't know how to handle it. John Heyman is a little scrawny guy like Doyle that got a little bit of suck as they've gotten older, a little bit. And like politicians, they don't know how to handle it. They're the worst of the absolute worst. I got a guy from Iowa telling me, no, there's some really good writers. Yeah, Armando is. Yeah, the guys that write here are. But we're not bound by the same stupidity of USA Today. We're not governed. You can write freely here, and you can write the truth without fear of retribution as long as it's the truth. can't do that in mainstream media, or they won't do that in mainstream media. There's got to be a bias. There's got to be an angle. There's got to be a push. If you're a woman, there's got to be a push. If you're black, got to be a push. If you're white, got to be a push. Got to be some kind of bias. I learned the other day, this was pretty funny. I know that if you do not agree with the liberal side, you will be called a name. I got a family member that calls me far right. I'm like, really? I don't even know what that means, but I get it. You're a liberal, so I'm far right. You got to call me a name. The world is insane. Good for Trevor Bauer. Cubs, sign Trevor Bauer. I'll wear a damn Trevor Bauer jersey. And you can kiss my backside on any of them. Any of them.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hunt and Withrow across the OutKick network. You can join us on YouTube. Search out OutKick. Hit the subscribe button. Hammer the like button as well. Give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the program. And as always, you can find all of the great shows right here on demand or live. We're live 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern daily. And thanks for listening to this great radio partner as well. Chad, there is a headline today, and we'll give the details in a moment, but Aaron Rodgers was seen tossing the football around pregame as the Jets win over Philadelphia. Well, there are further details and follow-ups on that as we hit our top headlines of the day with Scorched Earth across the OutKick network with Hot Mike. Aaron Rodgers, he's on the headset right now. I think it's important to note he's seen tossing the football because a lot of times teams want their stars who are hurt nowhere near the field. Between the lines during warm-ups, nothing. Not even close. Rodgers is going to do whatever he wants to do. He's on crutches on the sideline in some cases. We've seen him out there. But I think it's important to note that as you see headlines right now that say he could be back as early as Week 15. Week 15, not the playoffs, Week 15. Week 15 is December 17th for New York as they take on Miami. It's exactly 2 months from tomorrow. And with the Jets now at 3-3, it is not out of the question to ponder where they could be 2 months from now with that defense. Injuries, the war of attrition, health-wise, is always playing a factor on any team. But health-wise for Rodgers, if he's able to come back that fast, 1 month removed from surgery on the Achilles, he's tossing the football around without crutches. And the day after, you have medical experts that are saying, well, he could be back as early as December 17th against Miami in Week 15. What do you make of that?
It's crazy, and I keep hearkening back to something he told Pat McAfee when after the surgery, when he joined him, where he said, just because people want to laugh about it, but he said, just because something hasn't happened before doesn't make it impossible. And then I see this projection about Week 15. I think, well, maybe Aaron Rodgers is onto something.
So the medical expert for CBS, Marty Jaramillo, says he's absolutely ahead of schedule. Quote, he's moving almost 3 times as fast as traditional protocols. No boot, no crutches, minimal limp. It's quite exponential. There's no precedent for this type of recovery following an Achilles tear. He's beating back father time. And it goes on to go through, like, if he's this ahead of schedule based on what he's seen here, where he could be 2 months from now.
Look, could the Jets theoretically go around 500 during this stretch? All right, let's just use that date. Sure. That the doctor's throwing out there as a possibility. They get a bye this upcoming week. They go to the Giants, Chargers at home, at the Raiders, at the Bills, tough. Dolphins at home, tough. Falcons at home, Texans at home. Could this team with that defense hover around 500 during that stretch and give them a chance? For sure.
Absolutely.
That is not just murderer's row of a schedule leading up to that. So if, in fact, he was back by December 17th, at the Dolphins, Commanders at home, at the Browns, at the Patriots, I'm seeing that and thinking 3-1 is probably what you'd kind of expect if Aaron Rodgers is back with the Jets to end the season. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is right, and this thing isn't as dire as everyone expected.
But you know what this news also does? It's no different than him behind the scenes and then publicly saying, hey, stop talking crap about Wilson. Stop pointing fingers on what's happening with me not there. I'm coming back. Let's stay focused. Like, we stay with the unit that we were in the offseason. This also allows the entire team to do that. Even if they are blown out in the situation, Rodgers is coming back. You keep thinking about the return and what could be if you just get to a certain point. A lot of that's out of the control. Robert Saleh's done a nice job, though, in the meantime, keeping things together, and Rodgers is helping him. That's the other key with all of this. And the optics are shouting that this is going in the right direction because, again, no crutches, and the doc mentioned on there, no limp, minimal limp. That's also very intriguing. Chad, late night on Friday, Colorado loses a 29-point lead to Stanford. 1-win Stanford. And you check the score and you're like, well, this is Colorado about to be bowl eligible, getting their,
in their fifth win. It would have been.
Fifth win in a game they should have, and they're handling them. And then the second half happens. And Deion Sanders postgame says, we are not built for the moment. They're not. I like how, just obvious and just clearly stated he can be after a tough loss, after a blowout loss, and after an upset. And this was certainly an upset. I wonder, though, where this team responds moving forward, given the fact that they do have certain spots, namely, I think it's the offensive line, where they're just not at a certain level to go in and easily say, there's 2 more wins on the schedule. We went through it earlier. Deion, though, I think has a good read on the stars of his team, and the stars are good enough to keep everything on track. They're getting big leads. They're just not holding them.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders is a terrible pick in the second overtime, too, that ended up giving Stanford the ball back and where they could win the game. Says just a dumb play. I just threw it up, Sanders said post-game. Interesting to watch Deion Sanders post-game after losses. I think he's handled it mostly well, especially after the Oregon loss. This one was no different, and every question he's asking, everything he's saying is exactly what any coach would be asking or saying after what's truly a debilitating loss. I mean, 29-0 against a bad team. That game should be over. Even if they get a little bit hot in the second half, you got to be able to shut the door and find a way to win a close one at worst. But losing to this Stanford team, really, really bad for Colorado. And what was seemingly a foregone conclusion, which was bowl eligibility this season, now looks pretty daunting with the remaining schedule left after a home loss to Stanford.
USC boat raced by Notre Dame. And what does that loss mean for the Pac-12 and how we view the Pac-12, given the fact that Caleb Williams, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, trying to go back-to-back, goes on the road, and from the jump in the matchup in Vegas against Notre Dame into last week, Irish are the favorite, coming in with 2 losses, losing to Louisville. And you're facing Caleb Williams, and Vegas knew what Notre Dame was capable of. We touched on it, too. It's a hard game to pick one way or the other because you had a feeling just based on the circumstance, the spotlight, game being in South Bend, and knowing the possible weather conditions. It was all going to play a factor. Not to this extent, though. Not to the blowout extent to where now you look around and go, okay, top half of the Pac-12, as they start to play each other, I think the ruling would be, well, they ate their own, right? They're really good on the top half of the conference and very even. It's a good league. But what if you see some head-to-head matchups like we saw on Saturday and things go the way that it went for USC? Then the perception switches, and maybe you don't get the opportunity to get one or two teams in based on what happens in the other conferences. I think it does change the perception.
I don't think it does. To your scenario, or if the scenario plays out where USC just goes and boat races the rest of the conference and their 1 loss is to Notre Dame, who had 2 losses going into that, then maybe it changes my perception. I don't see that being the case. USC, I don't think they're going to lose 2 more games.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not even USC. I'm just saying the head-to-head matchups, as you look at Oregon or Washington, if you're trying to make the case, what would be a great win is how do you view the matchup for them against USC, given what we saw, where it's just not,
it just doesn't change my perception of the league. If we're looking at does it change your perception of the Pac-12? No, because I wasn't really thinking USC was I guess it's about what you thought going into the game. I didn't think USC looked like the best team in the conference going in. I thought they're going to be a tough challenge for anyone at the top of the conference, no doubt, because of Caleb Williams. But they had not been that good, and they showed themselves to not look very good against Notre Dame. So I don't think this is their lone blemish on the season. They're going to lose 1 or 2 more games. What I saw between Washington and Oregon, what I've seen at most of the year from Utah, teams that are on the rise like Oregon State and Washington State, Chip Kelly's got a defense, everybody, at UCLA. That's the strength of the conference. USC with Caleb Williams, the defending Heisman Trophy, that's the Hollywood marquee coming into it. But this doesn't change my view of the Pac-12 being the best conference in football one bit. This 1 loss at Notre Dame. Now, if we look back in December and I see USC wins the conference easily because they just go on to destroy everyone else in the Pac-12, well then I'll look back and say, boy, the team that won the Pac-12 had a blowout loss at Notre Dame. But I don't see that being the case.
Or
I still think it's the best conference in football.
If you lose to USC now, though, it's a loss that sticks out. Instead of just a close loss where you can still make a case for a resume, whether that's a New Year's Day opportunity, college football playoff of the 4, whatever it might be. And it is certainly, in thinking about the magnitude, Chad, of some of the losses we've seen, the 12-team playoff and the move to that format changes the magnitude of some of these games. Penn State, Ohio State this weekend, that the perception of that matchup changes with a 12-team playoff instead of the 4. The magnitude. And certainly the case with Washington, Oregon, or USC, Notre Dame for that matter, for both programs. That's the one thing that I think we'll look back on and be like, man, it's missing that extra little spotlight, the glimmer, the shine of the nervous pit in your stomach as the game kicks off, or you're at half and you're down by 3, final drive of this. You can still make the case for the teams we're discussing now on resume builders, or 2-loss Notre Dame. In this case, USC and the way they lost, I think, does affect how things could shape up if you're trying to make the argument for 5 versus 4 whenever it's all said and done.
Yeah, and I think it would be the argument for 2 Pac-12 teams in.
That's right.
To the 4, because, a 1-loss Pac-12 champion's in. Then the question could become, is a 1 loss, if that 1 loss is to USC, team that doesn't play for the Pac-12 championship or whatever it may be, can they get a second team in with 1 loss? That could be a question mark, but I still look at this conference top to bottom and the strength at 1 through 6 or 7 in the league. I think it's the best league in college football this season.
The Rangers, they get game 1 of the ALCS over Houston. The hot hand continues, although in the 8th, I did think the Astros were going away with a blast to left field. Caught right at the warning track where, I don't know, it was an awkward left-handed catch. You got at the wall where I don't know if the guy thought, the left fielder thought it was going to go against the wall if he was about to hit it, but it was like a half leap, half jump. He still ends up making the catch in what was maybe some Texas fans a bit nervous there over their rival in Houston. And then Altuve misses the second base on trying to tag back up to get to first, inning over.
I know Davey's very excited about the Rangers because of their love of Creed music that they play to get themselves pumped up for this run. I'm for the Rangers because
well done, David.
Of the teams left, they have not been this far since 2011, where they had a brutal loss to the Cardinals in that series. They had it all but wrapped up. So I'm all for the Rangers in this series. The Battle of Texas in Major League Baseball, you don't normally think about.
How deep do you think the playlist goes for the Rangers with the Creed mixtape?
I think it goes higher, and then higher again, and then higher a third time, and then with arms wide open, and then higher again for what is that, 5 times? I think that's the playlist. I think it's a lot of higher and a little bit of with arms wide open mixed in. That's the only way to enjoy Creed. Or on a cruise.
You could add My Sacrifice. Now,
that's another one.
I had it for later in the show, but since you guys mentioned it, I mean, Kirk Cousins, the Vikings adopted the Creed playing higher before their game, and
now,
he credited that to
Kirk Cousins bringing that playlist doesn't surprise me.
Kirk Cousins sings Creed at the top of his lungs while driving that minivan around is what I expect Kirk Cousins to be doing. I just like that he got the rest of the team into it.
Well, I mean, I would also add One Last Breath to the playlist, but I mean, if you just rotate between those 4 songs, you got banger after banger after banger. You're set.
Kirk Cousins getting his younger Vikings teammates to embrace Creed is the same thing as me trying to play Pearl Jam in the car with my young kids.
Well, the next time,
it's probably about the same response, too. Can we please listen to anything else?
The goal is to get the win, and the Rangers are doing it, and Kirk's attributing that for the Vikings win. So I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, they need to get Creed out to a game at some point. Like this should be something.
They're on a cruise,
singing the national anthem or something for a Rangers game. We got to embrace this thing
for the
full
cruise,
on.
Chad.
I don't.
If the Chiefs are going to embrace Travis Swift, the Rangers should embrace Creed. It's really that simple, guys. End of discussion.
That's my quarterback. The worst injury for a team based on the position. That's next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there, probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California, and I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeah, beer, Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hunt and Withrow. Across the OutKick network. Chad?
Hey, huge thanks to Old Smoky and Yeehaw.
Yeah.
We did something with them earlier today.
We did?
We did.
Petros Papadakis
You'll see it a little bit. You'll see it a little
40
bit later.
minutes. That's right.
If you're watching and see something a little bit different, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Love the partnership with them, though. They've been great hosts to us. And it's, nice to have a bar right outside of your studio. Not many can claim that.
It does not suck.
We can claim that here at Hot Mike.
Chad, Anthony Richardson, of course, with the Colts, considering season-ending surgery. That, according to Ian Rappaport, he's got a damaged AC joint for his shoulder, and he's seeked and has talked with multiple experts and multiple opinions on this. And they have to decide as an organization and for his career, if just recovery time, if surgery is the best option. It would be season-ending, and that is a huge step back for what was set up to be a promising rookie season for him through the first month of the year. And I'm saying that despite the fact that he was barely finishing games from the start of the year where he's getting banged up. Gardner Minshew goes on the road yesterday as the quarterback of the Colts. They lose 37-20, I believe the final score was, to Jacksonville back on the road. Minshew was awful. And Jacksonville picks up a nice win yet again. The clear leader in the AFC South now at 4-2 on the year. And they do it after winning back-to-back games in London and then choose not to have the bye as they return from London and still win over Indy.
It's amazing how it feels like now annually. It's Jacksonville just goes to London to get right and comes back. It's like going into a cryogenic chamber for them. They get healthy, they get younger, they come back, and everything's fine. They look good yesterday. Gardner Minshew, no Minshew mania in his return back to Jacksonville. And bummer about Anthony Richardson, because not just a lost year, if they in fact do this surgery, it's hey, your rookie that you drafted and you're going to run with him on design run plays, got hurt on a design run play, which I think kind of changes it's not just some pocket injury.
It was just a routine kind of tackle, too.
Designed run, he gets tackled, body lands on top of him. You see it a lot.
Right.
Shoulder injury, hitting the ground. Terrible.
Ryan Tannehill, speaking of AFC South, he's on the mend. Another ankle issue for him that suffered yesterday in London at Tottenham. Mike Vrabel saying earlier today that it seems to be the same issue that he suffered with the ankle last year. They'll seek multiple opinions over the bye week now and see where they head as far as backups are, where Malik Willis came in for him in the fourth quarter yesterday. And, of course, Will Levis, we've yet to see him as a active member of this Titans roster. He's the third string, could be the backup or the potential starter, as they will host Atlanta in 2 weeks. A lot of quarterback discussion on the injury front, and that's where we start with that's my quarterback.
It's my quarterback.
All right, guys, the injury concerns are out there. And really, if we look at it from this past weekend, 6 teams could be without their starting quarterback in their next game. You guys just talked about Ryan Tannehill, what was said there. We discussed earlier Jimmy Garoppolo and his back situation in Vegas. Justin Fields, a dislocated thumb. It looks as though he will be missing a game in Chicago just simply due to grip strength. They're going to continue to monitor that situation, but doubtful is the word that is being thrown around there. Trevor Lawrence, also doubtful. You got to remember, they have a Thursday night game against the Saints this upcoming week, and so his knee, quote, sprain is something to where C.J. Beathard might actually be the guy getting the nod for the Jaguars. And Baker Mayfield, while I don't think that one's a serious situation, he did hurt his non-throwing hand, definitely the least serious compared to all these others. And then you mentioned finding out, even though it happened a couple weeks ago, Anthony Richardson, we don't know if he's going to undergo the season-ending surgery. But, guys, which of these injuries is the biggest impact on a team's success moving forward?
And I'm not trying to project, how long the injury is going to last or any of that. So I'm not playing doctor here. I'm just going with this quarterback. If they're out, this is the biggest blow to this team.
Yes.
And I'm putting in 2 different factors. One, how good is the team? Because you got to be good and capable of something to be truly impactful. So Bears, get out. They're not going anywhere regardless. So it's not Justin Fields. Of the other teams that are left, I think when you combine who's behind them with their potential right now, the biggest blow would be Trevor Lawrence down for Jacksonville. C.J. Beathard's an extreme drop-off from Trevor Lawrence. For the Jags, a team that seems to be figuring things out, that to me looks like the best team in the AFC South, which is where everyone projected them to be before the season started. So I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. That is going to be a huge loss if he has to miss any time for that team.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's just not factoring in timetable at all.
Yeah.
To me, if we are factoring that in, because it's Trevor Lawrence is the answer. If we flip it, though, I think the answer is Jimmy Garoppolo. And here's why. Right now, I think Jacksonville is winning the AFC South. Houston's there. They're playing very well. Jacksonville's winning the AFC South with Lawrence. Doesn't seem to be long-term. The back issue took Jimmy G to the hospital. Transported to the hospital. They ran a lot of tests. It sounds like, according to Josh McDaniels, he says they dodged a bullet. It's not as serious as what they may have expected or were hoping for the opposite outcome, and it sounds like they've got that here. But this is a guy that when he's on the field, he wins at 70% of the time as a starting quarterback. It's not always because of him, but the dude wins games. And the Raiders are sitting at 3-3. And they have the same record as the Bengals, the same 500 record as the Chargers right now, and sitting in a division where they've got a stretch coming up against, of course, the Chargers and the Chiefs. So I would want the quarterback that's known for winning games, and it's just the timetable aspect of this is the guy that routinely is on the injury front and on the injury report. Lawrence isn't known for that. Lawrence is the answer if we're just looking at the short term, not the long term.
Outside of Lawrence, where would you say
the long term? Excuse me.
Where would you say the biggest gap is between the starter and the backup?
Outside of Lawrence?
Outside of Trevor, yeah.
Probably
Tannehill.
I
would say it's probably, but we don't know about Will Levis, but Tannehill to Malik Willis would be my vote.
If you're a Titans fan, obviously you don't want to see your starting quarterback get hurt, but if you're considering, it's a busy draft class when looking at the quarterback position. I know you just spent a second-round pick on Will Levis, but this gives him an opportunity to get out there and prove if he's got the capabilities to be a starting quarterback at this level. Is that something you can potentially take away from this?
I mean, yes, they have to play Will Levis at some point. If Tannehill's on the shelf for the rest of the year, Malik Willis is not the answer. It's why they drafted Will Levis. I don't know why Malik Willis continues to be the backup, so yeah. They've got to play him and at least see what they got. Now, on the flip side of that, if they're going to take this snapshot, if they truly believed in Will Levis with this offensive line, if they're going to take him and put him in this situation and then determine, he's not the guy. Let's discard him also and draft a third quarterback in 3 years in the first round. That's another issue for this franchise that could put him back even further. But he needs to play.
Yeah, and I think at minimum he needs to be elevated to the backup to Tannehill. But just based on the vibe here, it doesn't sound like Tannehill's going to be available in 2 weeks. And I wonder, last year Tannehill fought through that pain in the ankle, taped it up, and tried to play through it, and then got hurt even worse, and ended up having this same surgery that Brock Bowers is about to have on the ankle, trying to speed up the recovery process of a high ankle sprain. And he waited to do it though. I wonder, just based on the outlook of the team, knowing that it's his final year and he's going to be elsewhere a year from now, does he opt to have the surgery sooner rather than later compared to last year where he knew he could be a part of the long-term plan or be a part of a team that was potentially going to address some significant issues in the offseason? And he knows he's not back now. This is where the business crossroads meets with the leader and the mindset of the player, where you want to be out there with your team. Tannehill's already proven he wants to do that. He did that last year. But I wonder if it's just a different scenario for him now. And if that's the case, Chad, at minimum, Levis needs to be the backup to Tannehill. And if he's not starting over Willis, he needs to play, because it's not good. It's not a good scenario either way. By the way, David, the answer to your question, worst backup scenario, I would have to point to Tyson Bagent.
It's Bagent.
Bagent. Division II Shepherd University is the backup to Justin Fields in Chicago. He came in yesterday whenever Fields went down with that hand issue, the thumb.
He's the all-time leading passer in college football history at Shepherd University. His father is an arm wrestling legend. I remember this from a preseason game, talking about this. His dad holds some sort of arm wrestling record also. Anyway, I don't think that helps him, though.
And he's playing for the Bears, which is not going to help him either.
No.
Yeah, they were already on track to get the #1 pick with Justin Fields. This isn't going to probably deter them away from continuing down that path. But, guys, just speaking simply on performance for our next topic, which quarterback wants a do-over from Sunday?
It's Jalen Hurts. He lost the game throwing off his back foot to no one and gave the Jets the ball in prime scoring position. He doesn't do that. I really believe if they just run, work clock, punt, I don't think Zach Wilson's leading them down the field for the win. So he lost the game with that bad decision. So I think it's Jalen Hurts. And it's a one-play do-over,
It may be Hurts. It may be his worst game for his NFL career. I mean, it was really bad. Some of the interceptions are tip passes or just great plays by the defense. But down the stretch, that's on Jalen Hurts. Another possible answer could be Brock Purdy. I think if he could redo it, he's wearing a glove. Maybe he goes with the double glove because of the rain and the weather conditions against that Browns defense, where he's never lost a game as a start of the regular season, and he has an offense that puts up double the amount of points that San Francisco was able to tally, even though they had a fourth quarter lead, 17-6. And then Geno Smith, who just against the Bengals had a late lead and then turned it over and gave it up to Cincinnati, and the Bengals end up getting a big win at home in a low-scoring performance for that game. And I was expecting more than 13 points for Seattle on the road.
Both solid answers there, guys. I would also probably throw Baker Mayfield into that equation. He had a really, really rough outing against the Lions, but hey, the Lions look good. And
Detroit's defense continues. Have they allowed more than 20 points all year? I'm not sure. They have, but maybe 4 of the 6 games.
They're biting kneecaps.
They get after it, man.
But if one play could be done, or there could be a redo, I would think that would go to Tyrod Taylor and the Giants right before the end of the first half, checking out of a pass option and running the ball with Saquon to where they get 0 points. And had they just been able to settle for a field goal there, they're late in the fourth. They're able to have a field goal attempt to just go up 15-14 and get the win. He's got to be kicking himself for that. But then, guys, finally, to quote Shaq, I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game.
Yeah, I'm going to go C.J. Stroud. Not that I didn't like C.J. Stroud coming into the draft or into this, with the Texans. I am surprised at his level of proficiency with what looks like a bad rebuilding roster. So C.J. Stroud's been a huge surprise to me. I owe him an apology because I didn't think I'd be talking about him as the clear-cut best rookie quarterback so far, performance-wise, and that's what he is.
The most consecutive passes without an interception in NFL history, C.J. Stroud. They ended, but he ends it with the lead in that category, 191 consecutive. But he had another solid game as the starter for Houston. You're right, Chad. The other one for me, just in overall, is probably Joshua Dobbs.
Yeah. That's a good one.
They were running the football really well. He didn't start an NFL game until last season in December. And he ends up holding things together to where Arizona appears competitive, believe it or not. Now, the results are not there on the win-loss column, but Dobbs is more than just a third-string guy, and that's all he had been until then. And the just perception of him was he's a fringe guy between the practice squad and a team that wants to keep 3 on the active roster. It's probably Dobbs on the, hey, sorry for thinking that you were at best some practice squad guy making $100,000. Maybe I'm overshooting the question there a bit.
That's good. Davey, you're the man. Nice sunglasses.
Keep
Appreciate
those sunglasses on.
Don't ever take them off.
Plenty of headlines coming up, including the NFL trying to stage the Super Bowl in London. What are they thinking?
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Taste of the Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here for the Monday edition of Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us as we broadcast from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Coming up in 20 minutes, Petros Papadakis joins us, Fox Sports college football analyst, solid radio host as well, joins us from Los Angeles. We'll ask what has happened to USC, defensively especially, given the performance that we've seen throughout the season, trying to run it back with a Heisman campaign for Caleb Williams and for Saturday night to happen against Notre Dame.
Tough.
Boat raced. Props to the Irish. Trojans moving forward with Lincoln Riley. And Caleb Williams and his father saying, maybe we don't just dive in.
Maybe we come back.
NFL.
Maybe we make a
come
little
back.
NIL money. Got all that. What is it? It's United? Yeah, United Airlines.
Oh, he's got
the
that.
one he's got. Is it Delta or
Neutrogena.
United?
I think it's United. Neutrogena. Several.
He's getting it done. We'll also ask Petros to rank former USC football players turned media members in order. And,
yes, in order.
It's going to be a fight between him and Matt Leinart at the top, I think.
Chad, will fans put up a fight, NFL fans put up a fight, if the league tries to stage the Super Bowl or, in fact, books a future Super Bowl in London? Because I say yes, absolutely. It's been 16 seasons now where we have seen the NFL put games over in the UK. And all of a sudden, you've got Goodell, who is trying to push the narrative of a Super Bowl. This has been a rumbling for a couple of seasons. And I have long said, I think with Roger Goodell, who continues to make $40+ million, he's making the type of money that we're seeing from Jonathan Taylor. Goodell makes that annually, and Taylor's contract extension for 3+ years in Indianapolis over the course and life of that contract now. He's got everything he needs to step away and say, I'm leaving this better than when I found it. Where whenever he took over, there's a lot of off-the-field issues, more than just speeding, a lot of things going on throughout the league. And he tried to be the judge, jury, and executioner and became that. The players gave him that power, quite frankly. Beyond that, though, what's his legacy? I believe, Chad, he wants his legacy to be the expansion of London, UK, and just the international brand of the National Football League. Regular season games in Germany. They've tried for years. They haven't been able to pull it off consistently to be in Mexico City. They can play a game in Canada if they so choose, and elsewhere. But these aren't preseason games we're talking about. Regular season games where the owners are all saying, yeah, we'll put us in rotation. Some will volunteer more than once. Jacksonville. But this is just a nudge for him in a way that certainly it speaks volumes for where he wants to take it. And there's no secret that the owners want to take it there too.
This, though, the idea of a Super Bowl in London is, to me, pathetic. Because I equate it to, first off, it's not even their football. This is American football. They have a different form of football. Now think of British form of football. What if the English Premier League played their championship match in New York City? It's never going to happen. They have more pride than that in England. We should have more pride than that in America, especially our version of football. The London series is one thing. Bringing games over there, that's kind of a flex, right? That's going over there, playing a different form of football and selling out stadiums with actual NFL fans in the UK filling up the house for those games. This is a pathetic move. The Super Bowl is to be played in the United States of America and nowhere else. I am adamantly opposed to any idea of this happening. International series, fine. Get more money internationally, whatever. Taking a Super Bowl, I would just reverse the question and pose it with any other major sport that's based in another country. Are they taking the premier event, not some friendly where they come over and play an MLS team, one of the top clubs in Europe? I'm talking about the premier event of that country's sport. Are they bringing it to the United States of America? The answer is hell no. And the answer to should America or should the NFL take the Super Bowl out of America is also hell no.
Well, logistically, it's not going to make a ton of sense. 5 hours ahead from the East Coast. And at what time are you going to kick off the game, for instance? Just all the logistics of what that would entail. But beyond that, I don't think the NFL is taking the Super Bowl there as a one-off. And it can't happen for the next 3 years plus, based on how they have this laid out. But there's no secret to the fact that, and he said this 2018, 2017. It was 2018 because we were in London for the international series for Titans Chargers. And he said that season, he wants a Europe division. He wants to put a division in Europe. There's also no secret to the fact that next year they're trying to put games in Spain and Brazil for the regular season. This would be a Super Bowl in an NFL market. This would not be the top brands internationally for soccer playing their championship game in America and not having a team here. I think the NFL wants to put a team in London, and by doing so, that would fall into the parameters of what they've done. They host the game in NFL cities, and they want to have NFL cities in Europe.
Well, and what Roger Goodell wants to do and what the owners want to do may be two different things, because Roger Goodell works for the owners. I would be curious to see if that's what every owner would want. If they want a European division, if they want to add European money into it and add ownership of teams there, or just keep it in the U.S. They got a pretty sweet deal going right now. I don't know. There's a lot they need to change with the NFL.
But they keep adding games.
It is ambitious. I mean, if there's a European division in the NFL, then sure, one of those teams should host a Super Bowl as a member of the league and someone that's hosting games there anyway. But right now, I do not like this idea at all.
Yeah, but it won't happen with just the idea that it's just we're going to London to play for any random reason. I think this would be in part of this unveiling of however many teams they want. They need more than one. And the division is, I think, down the road several years. But can you put two franchises there in an expansion? You could. And then what you do is you travel, and when you're in the States, you're here for 2 weeks. You basically do it the way the Jaguars did it. I think that could also be a trial run for a franchise, by the way, of what Jacksonville just did. They stayed over for 2 straight weeks, won both games, came back without a bye, and won another one in the division. And they'll probably run it back again next year with the same franchise because Jacksonville's willing to do it because they want to move there. And that would be the argument. It's like, how do you do it based on the training of the Titans are going like 48 hours for the game to play, and they're flying back. They get back around midnight last night. Like, it's just a back and forth that maybe the trip ends up being faster than even what it is right now with the flights. I'm intrigued by it. I think they're going to force the issue on it.
Let's allow Jacksonville to do it. Go ahead. You can be the test dummy. Sure, go. Let's do that. Let's start with them before we expand.
Well, they are the test dummy already.
Well, I'm saying full on.
Well, they need 2 teams to make it happen.
Let's get out of North Florida. Let's go to London. Just go ahead and tell us how it is, and we can all feel it out and see how a team over there full-time is.
The real question is, at what point do they expand and put some of these international cities for preseason? And what do the players get in return for playing those games? AKA Saudi. Because that's where the money comes in. You want to talk about regular season finance?
Oh, man.
You want to stage a game there?
I pity the country that thinks that's an important deal, a preseason NFL game, with literally no one you're ever going to see on your television playing in the game the majority of snaps.
I'm saying that they would have to pay the players to guarantee they're playing more. And you would have some guys that would step up and do that.
I mean,
they could pay Mahomes his annual salary for a preseason performance. They pay Vince McMahon $50 million for a pay-per-view annually.
Good for them if they think that it's worthy of bringing an event there. I would just want a regular season game. I mean, if you've got all the money in the world, then go ahead and get that Germany game over to Riyadh. If you really want to sports wash everything the way everybody claims they are, go ahead and spend the money to do that. I would not mess around with a preseason game. But that's my lack of interest in the NFL preseason.
Well, I don't think they care about the preseason. They care about the validation. And you have the NFL brand and some of the biggest stars. They're not going to send Jacksonville in the preseason game against, Cincinnati. Or not even Cincinnati now. Small market, Atlanta. No, you're going to end up with Cincinnati. Burrow against Jalen Hurts in the preseason. Saudi Bowl. This is also part of that, Chad. We're talking about Brazil, Spain. At some point, you go from the regular season and back it up some and go to the preseason. If you're not going to put a division over there, you're going to make the type of money that they're talking about and why they're considering the division.
Yeah. No one's going close to that region right now, though. That's for sure. With any events.
Well,
maybe one day, but not right now.
You can get you get anyone's attention with the millions upon millions. Chad, the NFL this year, scoring's way down through 6 games, and now we don't even have an unbeaten team. Both unbeatens fall yesterday, and so going into Week 7, you have every team with at least 1 loss, and that is unusual. Last year, the Eagles went all the way through Week 10 before they suffered their first loss. Year before that, Arizona with Kyler Murray didn't lose a game until Week 8 or Week 9. And then in 2020, it was Pittsburgh who went 13 or 12 games, Week 13 before they suffered their first loss against Baltimore. And
was that the COVID year?
Yeah.
Because didn't that game happen on like a Tuesday afternoon? I swear I can remember Pittsburgh losing the first time late in the year, and it was like a Wednesday at 3 o'clock because of all those delays that happened that year.
I think you're right, yeah. I think, yeah.
Remember, didn't the Titans host the Bills on Tuesday night?
Well, and they lost. Yeah, they did. The Titans hosted the Bills for
game?
Monday night or Sunday.
Limited attendance game.
And then they were missing players due to everyone in COVID protocol, and then still blew out Buffalo, who wanted to get that game in because the Titans were depleted based on the talent of the roster. You're right.
You know what's the most fun about this? Every time, the rite of passage, every time this year, when the last unbeaten team goes down, is the 72 Dolphins popping champagne. I saw so many posts yesterday of that photo of them as old. This is probably from like the early 90s. Don Shula's in it, and they're all Larry Zonka, Mercury Morris. They're popping champagne together, and people are just posting that over and over after the Eagles lost. I can't get enough of it. Love it.
Joe Burrow back. They're winning games. Burrow and the offense, not great. They still got a lot of issues to figure out in Cincinnati. But he's connecting again with Jamar Chase. Chase is wearing the 7-Eleven necklace because he's always open. Low-scoring affair against Seattle, but the Bengals get a big win, and they're back to 500. AFC North, wide open. The only division where every team is 500 or better. Baltimore wins a game where they allow the Titans to come back in the second half, still hold on against a bad Titans football team. Pittsburgh had the bye, but they've been winning at a clip that no one saw coming based on the start. And Cleveland's winning with their defense. Cincinnati, too, for that matter. Wide open, and this is the division that could get 3 in.
Well, and you called it last week. You were saying that do not sleep on the Bengals just yet. And this was going to be a big test with what they did against Seattle. And they won it with defense. Joe Burrow still needs to get literally his feet underneath him.
Yes.
Because he's got a wounded limb at this point, and you can still see it as he plays. But the fact that the Cincinnati has recovered well after a rough start, that's encouraging, and they're doing it with defense.
Seattle was held to 1 touchdown on 5 red zone possessions. And they had plenty options in the fourth quarter to go down and get a score. Defense was resilient. That was the story across the league. Well, we see a defensive battle tonight. It's Dallas taking on Los Angeles, the Chargers coming off the bye, and with a chance now on Monday night to send the national discussion to the NFC and the NFC East, with Dallas possibly losing back-to-back games. Meanwhile, defense was not the case against San Francisco last week. They have a chance to put all the pressure back on Brandon Staley and company. We'll make our predictions later in the show. You can make yours now. And hop on to OutKick.com/bet. Pointsbet is where to go to place your wager. It's the perfect moment. Here's the big reason why. Exclusively first-time Pointsbet users, this unique offer. Pointsbet users, if you're new to sign up at OutKick.com/bet, you can get up to $1,000 in second chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, Pointsbet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting OutKick.com/bet. You complete the registration process with PointsBet. You make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, that's when the second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. OutKick.com/bet is where to head to snag this offer. I feel pretty good about my my advice later in the show, later this hour.
I'm really at a loss, Hutton, especially with my wrong team favorite. I'm still sitting on a goose egg for the season after Tennessee beat A&M this past weekend. So NFL bets this weekend, bad. College football bets, pretty good, actually, to start.
You've been good on that.
I've been good on Friday night and early Saturday session. Then I get a little confident, and it goes downhill in the late afternoon and evening session of college football. But NFL bets have been real bad this year. I need that second chance. I also need you to explain the second chance to me every time.
Well, if your first bet loses, that's when your second chance bets come into play. Up to $1,000 for new users.
Not the first one, but
the second one.
Okay.
Second chance.
That's a second chance.
That's right.
I need a third chance. Fourth chance, maybe.
Petros Papadakis joins us. USC could use a second chance against Notre Dame. What happened to the Trojans? We've got the guy to speak on it next from Fox Sports.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us this afternoon. Alongside Chad Withrow, I'm Jonathan Hutton. It's Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network, joined by Petros Papadakis, who is, number one, great dude. Number two, the coolest dude that we know from Los Angeles, Chad. And number three, knows USC better than anyone we could have on the show today. Petros, good to have you back on, man. Hope things are well.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be on, and congratulations on all your guys' success with the website and the Clay Travis Tornado Empire.
No doubt. Yeah, Clay. We'll let Clay know that you said that, and also that he wanted to know or let you know that he said hello earlier. You're always great with Fox and your college football coverage, and you know USC well. What the hell happened this past weekend?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it was something that was not predictable. You know, I mean, there's a reason Notre Dame lost by multiple touchdowns at Louisville, and they came home and they were favorites. You know, I'm not a big gambling guy, and for so long, you know, I've been calling games since 2004 nationally. And I mean, for the better part of that, you know, a big no-no was to not talk about gambling. You know, Al Michaels would mention a spread and everybody's butthole would clench up, you know. Now, you know, we have our own gambling app, you know. So, you know, the spread, having Notre Dame as a favorite, you know, after losing to Louisville and SC is undefeated with a Heisman guy, you know, that kind of told the tale, I thought. And for those of us that are here, and, you know, I guess my perspective is relatively unique because I did a lot of Big 12 football when Lincoln Riley was there. I still do a lot of Big 12 football. And I just don't really see much difference from what they were doing at Oklahoma once Bob Stoops left. You know, I think Bob Stoops made him run the ball a little bit in the second half and made him play a little bit more, you know, the word of the day is complimentary football. But I mean, I guess the long answer is, guys, I wasn't shocked. You know, the backup quarterback at Arizona takes you to the wall at home last week. You know, Colorado makes a win into feel like a loss because you refuse to run the ball in the second half and let them, you know, feel good about themselves. Arizona State ran the ball on. I mean, I did Colorado USC last year, and we all know how bad Colorado was. But you know what they did? They ran the ball. You know, Arizona's running like a short side toss play to the weak edge, you know, over and over and over again. You don't stop it. I think it was kind of predictable. The one thing I thought that was kind of interesting was the way Notre Dame played Caleb Williams. You know, they attacked him certainly on the inside, but on the outside, they kind of slow played him. And, you know, they didn't go upfield and create vertical run lanes for him and really confuse the guy. And my dad said something interesting. He said, it's better to have a super team than a Superman. And I think USC's been playing Superman football and they got exposed.
So Petros Hutton said that you're the best USC person we've met through Clay. I'll have to say Leinart 1A, you 1B. But
Well,
that's
we're
still
very
really
different.
good company to put you in, right? So that's not bad at all.
But Chad, I don't remember the night we met Leinart, so that's
true.
Yeah, right.
Well, let me be frank, guys. You know, I played football at USC when we were not good. You know, in those days, we had great players. I played with Troy Polamalu and Carson Palmer and so on and so forth. But we were a team. Our culture was the culture of South Los Angeles. You know, we were guys that shot dice. You know, none of us had sex with a movie star. You know, I mean, so we are very different. I did not ever embrace that side of USC. So I'm not like Leinart. I don't want to be 1A, 1B, or 1 anything.
Let's go.
He's a great TV personality. We just have very different perspectives on our alma mater.
We'll say that since you're doing the interview with us and not Leinart, you're definitely 1A.
Yeah.
3 or 4. So no doubt about that. I want to ask you, though, about Caleb Williams, and not necessarily about him right now, but when you see the reports about his dad already saying, hey, we might come back if it's not the right team and this and that, he's clearly a great talent on the field. What do you see him as in the NFL moving forward?
I mean, I think, you know, being a predictor of quarterback talent, you know, if you're really good at it, you know, they pay you millions and millions of dollars a year. It's really hard. You know, some of these guys we see walk through the door and your eyes pop out. You know, I mean, I saw Brock Purdy in college and I liked him a lot, you know, but, you know, there's other guys I saw in college that I liked a lot, and they get out there and it doesn't look like they know if it's pumped or stuffed. And I think, you know, everybody wants to have the right perspective or feel like they know, you know, what a young man's future is going to be. The truth is, you know, especially if you play the sport, football is very circumstantial, you know, and some of the best football players I've ever seen, you know, no one ever saw because of circumstance, you know, a baby's mom or drugs or academics or, you know, tragedy, you know. Caleb Williams is kind of above that kind of thing. Like, it's almost like, you know, how can he fail? You know, he goes left and turns his body and, you know, I mean, he does amazing things. At USC, it's kind of become hero ball, right? They're playing for a Heisman, it feels like, and he's dropping back and tapping the ball and, you know, running all over the place. And that's become their offense, and it's sort of made them predictable and one-dimensional. As far as the NFL is concerned, I would say the sky's the limit. I mean, his skill set seems to be, you know, really, he's got an arsenal of everything you would want. He's got a big, strong body. You can't bring him down easily. He seems like he leads the hell out of the football team. He took the offensive line around all summer and winter and shared his NIL money with all those guys. And, you know, he did a lot of good things. You know, it's just such a different world today of college football as far as these guys making like more money than the coach on the other team. And because of that, you know, we're sort of in a brave new world as far as leverage against the NFL. I mean, and we've seen guys with no leverage, like Eli Manning and John Elway, you know, in different generations and a different time, you know, be able to kind of dictate their situation. But to me, the kid seems like the gold standard of quarterbacking. You know, he plays for Lincoln Riley, and Lincoln Riley wants to feature the offense, wants to feature the quarterback above all else. I'm not sure how that really translates to the next level, but, you know, I got nothing bad to say about the kid. I think he's spectacular.
It's interesting, the timing of the comments about, oh, maybe we'll come back if it's not the right team. Is it just, you think they're inferring Arizona? Do you think they're serious? And right now there are 5 teams with 1 win, and then of course Carolina, who is winless. Who knows? I just don't know if he's serious or not about turning down the opportunity to make millions.
A lot of this stuff, you know, I mean, calling football all these years and being involved in the sport, you know, you really have to change your perspective to survive. It's adapt or die. You know, I mean, I'm an old school short yardage tailback, for God's sakes. You know, it was really hard to stomach targeting calls, you know, and blindside blocks and, you know, crown of the head and all this shit. You know, it's like, that was a tough adjustment. But if you want to work in football, it changes and you have to be okay with it. I mean, my general adage when I was a player at SC, if guys would ask me advice about what to do, guys that were going to play at the next level, I would say, don't play for free. If you don't have to play for free, don't. We have a short shelf life, and this is a sport that probably wouldn't exist in a perfect world. We're out here wrecking each other, but that doesn't apply anymore, right? Like, he ain't playing for free, far from it, and we're still in this brave new world now. 10 years from now, are guys going to look back on this window in the early 2020s and say, my God, there was no cap on what you could get paid and everybody was getting some and it was like the Wild West? Maybe. But right now, living in LA, you can get paid playing at SC, I guess the same as an NFL rookie would. These guys all want to prove it at the next level, though, too. So you kind of have to measure it out against that. I guess I don't know how serious they are, but it is like an extra element of leverage. And it's another front that the NFL kind of has to, and they have to fight a battle on. Yeah.
Petros, I couldn't help but watch Washington, Oregon, which was a terrific football game, and get just a little bit angry and a little bit sad thinking that this is about to be a Big Ten rivalry game between these two. What did you think as you watched those two teams?
Well, it's interesting because, I was always just a USC guy. My dad was a player at SC, my older brother, and I tried to not to be. I'm a real contrarian, but I left Cal and I left Cal in humiliation and ended up at SC. So it wasn't until I started working, in the media that I really fell in love with the conference, doing the Pac-10 game of the week for about 10 years with a great broadcaster named Barry Tompkins, who's the guy who calls the fight in Rocky IV, between Drago and Rock. The Russian is hurt, is Barry. So, and Barry's an old school Bay Area superstar broadcaster. So, I really just came to love the places of the conference for a long time. And I think it is sad. I think what's interesting is Washington, Oregon is really, they played for 100 years, but they've only really hated each other with this bloody kind of vendetta, oath of death that they have. And that's really been like the last 30, 25 years, which is kind of funny. But I thought it was going to be like the Red River rivalry, like it was last year, just a wild ass game from the start. And it was, Michael Penix is so impressive because unlike Caleb, he doesn't really run around at all. Everything's done in the context of the offense, and that ball is down the field, like way down the field. And he's got great receivers, great play caller, great head coach. Their defense has improved. And, you got to love Bo Nix and Franklin and Bucky Irving. And Oregon's excellent on defense as well. I wish they didn't wear the poop stain unis, but they did. But either way, yeah, they're going to play for a long time. I'm really a lot more worried about Wazoo and Oregon State, and what's going to happen with them and how all this lawsuit stuff shakes out. My God, I went on the radio in Corvallis the other day, and they started yelling at me about antitrust and the Constitution and all these weird legal terms that Clay would know. And it's like, dude, I'm a football analyst, and now I just.
Why are they yelling at you about that?
I'm not yelling at me, but we live this every day, and it's just like these macroeconomics that, like a college football, like I'm used to saying, like, hey, look at this double team, and it's like, instead I'm talking about very different things. So it's been a wild off season, but yeah, I'm worried about those teams. Washington and Oregon, they're going to move on to the Big Ten and, have some long road trips. But I think this West Coast enclave of UCLA, Oregon, Washington, SC, there'll be some familiarity there, and we'll just keep going forward.
Always great, man, to have you a part of the show yet again. Keep up the great work. Love what you do on the West Coast, and hopefully you'll like us enough to come back on soon.
I love you guys.
There we go.
have fun at the next big party in Hollywood with Leinart and Sanchez and all the cool guys. You can tell them you talked to the grumpy old troll under the bridge.
We'll join you there too. Petro,
we'll tell them that you're definitely better than all of those guys. So
yeah.
That's right.
Hey, nobody calls a freaking Mountain West game at midnight like me, baby. Let's go.
We're up late with you.
Oh, good.
Thanks, man.
Good night.
Stay tuned. A lot more coming right here. Hot Mic with Undie Withrow across the OutKick network. And Chad, Petro saying there, USC and the craziness of that final score and the overall 3 interceptions the first half for Caleb Williams. He drops all the way to fifth in the odds for the Heisman Trophy favorite to plus 1,200 now. Favorite is, of course, Michael Penix Jr. minus 150 after the weekend.
He should probably drop lower than that, honestly. Love Petros. Definitely not a troll under the bridge the way he claimed.
But he owns it if he is.
Definitely lower than Leinart, though, on the power rankings, even though I flattered him there on that one.
Second in the odds, by the way, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan.
No, he is the one, to me, that we got to start taking seriously.
Well, let's discuss that.
Based on what Michigan's doing, what he's doing, that's the fast riser.
Let's discuss, though, and you're right, the numbers are exceptional. And
best player on the best team right now. And that Alabama learned that gets you the Heisman a lot of years.
He's getting serious with the recognition on the odds, and he'll get plenty of recognition late on votes if they keep up what they're doing.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old smoky moonshine and whiskey. Old taste of the Southern legend.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us. Fast-paced show today, Monday edition. They always fly by in football season.
Football season gets it done.
Ratings continue to get it done as well.
Gets it done.
Offense may not be up in the NFL, but ratings, the networks love it. And not just because of Taylor Swift.
I did see the SNL parody of Taylor
what
Swift
did they
coverage. They lampooned Fox Sports, the studio show. Terry Bradshaw, Howie Long. And it was pretty funny. They just turned them all into huge Swifties. And they were arguing over who's the biggest Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah.
Michael Strahan, everyone in studio discussing
Basically what
it.
happened.
And then they said, now we're going to go live to someone who just wants to talk about football and not Taylor Swift. And it was Travis Kelce that was on the field. And he said, he didn't even say anything. He was just like waiting to talk. And then they went to break.
Isn't it interesting? It's like sports is an escape. And it can't be until it absolutely is, because people are clamoring for it, which is Taylor Swift, Kelce, but also Deion Sanders. You know, the algorithms, anytime you mention Colorado or Deion or whatever, you go to the front of the line. So it was more about that than it was anything else and any narrative people were pushing.
I wonder if that changes now with some of their recent problems. I always think back to just like sports in the greater context. I'm going to get a little deep here, I think. But remember COVID? Does everyone remember that time in our lives? I hate thinking about it.
And what sports
And
meant?
I said this before. I watched the morning show on Apple TV, and they had this whole episode about what everyone was doing during COVID, and it really bothered me just even watching it and thinking about that time. But remember when The Last Dance aired during COVID? Or coming out of it, and then sports started happening. And at the time, I think it was Major League Baseball with no fans at all. And we were just so enamored with watching sports again. It is the great release and escape from so many things.
Yes.
So many more serious things that go on in the world that thank God for them. Man, thank God for sports. I think about that during that time, now at all times. Mondays during football season, thank God for sports.
And it's the one area, well, really two, because I think concerts also factor into this with music, because a lot of the artists that you'll go watch you certainly don't want to, especially for me, I can raise my hand on this too. I'm guilty of it. I don't listen to the lyrics if there's a great soundtrack to whatever the moment is in a bar or pregame warm-ups, whatever. And, the artists that'll certainly voice their opinion, I don't always back. But that's the beauty of it. And that's certainly the case with the NFL, with baseball, or any of these athletes that you're going to support. Sports and music are the two areas where you can go watch in person and you don't give a damn about who you're sitting next to, right? Like, you're there and it's an escape. We get the benefit of being able to work in the playground of life.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let anyone mess with the playground of life. Sorry.
Never. And nor should you ever
if you're
apologize
pissed off
for
for
that.
greatness over the fact that the NFL is talking about taking the Super Bowl to London, Be pissed off about anyone that's trying to inject politics into sports and doing it ahead of time, trying to do it on purpose to stir up conversation and push a narrative instead of just letting sports be sports.
In any possible way, too. It happens so many different ways. So be wary.
And by the way, when
that.
sports are sports, the ratings are up.
You know what else about sports?
And millions, billions are being spent on
You know
that.
what else about sports Hutton, that's great? And I know you know this. I watched Remember the Titans with my 8-year-old over the weekend. Had never seen it. She had never seen it.
Okay.
Watch Remember the Titans. She knows very little about football. Plays softball, knows about that game.
Coach Boone.
Knows very little about football. But watches this movie and absolutely loves it. Why? That movie is about unification. It's about uniting people, not dividing. It's about high school kids bringing adults together, bringing a town together. It is a terrific story. Well made. Denzel Washington, terrific as always. Love that movie. But a great reminder that, man, sports are just really damn cool.
Well, then you turn it off.
Glad to get to talk about it right here on OutKick Hot Mic every day.
That's right. And again, like we're never going to read off a prompter.
No.
And push a narrative that we don't believe in. And a narrative is something we would believe in. It's opinion. It's personal belief, not the narratives. Far too many narratives.
So many narratives.
There are.
So many narratives.
There absolutely are. Until it's game time. And then it's all about the sports aspect of it. But, instead of, how many people, Chad and I were against this at the time, and we're vocal about it, taking the knee for the national anthem. Now it's about, if you're standing for the anthem, are you singing with the anthem? Come on.
Well, if you're allowing one protest, you're allowing another protest. You're doing this protest. You're doing that. I mean, just.
Right. Yeah, it's the NHL it sounds like they've had some common sense with all of these specialty nights in the promotion. Instead of trying to sell a jersey, realize that not all of your players want to come out in a Pride night warm up. Or there's not many people that are going to, in fact, I don't know of any, that are going to be anti-cancer. Or anti-cancer night for the NHL. The pink initiative that we'll see in the NFL. Not too many. You're not going to find backlash over that.
There are still safe things.
There are things where everyone can come
support.
together.
What I hate, hate's a strong word.
Go ahead.
What I really dislike is hypocrisy, but more than hypocrisy is the inability to recognize one's own hypocrisy.
Yes.
There are times that I'm a hypocrite about things, but I can acknowledge them in my own mind because I like to think of myself as self-aware. Can I be better at that? Absolutely. Just like everyone can. But I like to point out my own hypocrisy when there's times to do that. I cannot stand when people are so pious and so believing in their own way of thinking and their own way of doing that they cannot acknowledge their own hypocrisy. Happens far too often.
Well said.
Got to get over that. We got to get over that. And then we wouldn't have a lot of these things happening.
Chad, it would be hypocritical of us to not mention that our predictions for the NFL, our bets have not ended well so far.
Let me be the first to raise my hand and say,
go ahead.
If you've taken any of my betting advice at all this year, I want to be the first to not be a hypocrite and acknowledge where I have been wrong. And it's in virtually every bet that I've asked you to make this year. I have sucked predicting games terribly.
But tonight?
I'm not going to be a phony. I'm not going to be a fake. I'm not going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. I'm not going to tell you one thing. I'm not going to say I'm anti-this while also promoting being pro-this in the same vein. None of that. I'm going to be 100,000% real with you right now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for leading you astray with all of my bets all year. I'm sorry that I'm the only one in this damn competition of the wrong team favored to not score a single damn point all year. My sincerest apologies. I'll be better.
Chad,
I will try to be better.
Let me pick up where Chad should be.
I'm not doing
it
on purpose. This is what I think will happen. Great at reacting. I've said this constantly. Great at reacting, Chad Withrow. Terrible at predicting. So let's go ahead and predict now.
No, hang on.
Let's predict.
Hang on.
Let's get out of the way.
I need to speak on your
Let's
behalf.
Give me another
here.
loser.
What he also gave us was Michael Penix Jr. winning the Heisman, a futures prop bet that will pay off in mega fashion and actually have Chad winning money at the end of the college football season.
I failed to bet on it. I told everyone to do it, but I didn't do it. But yeah, I should have done it.
You would end up making money over all the losses when it's all said and done based on that prediction and seeing the future the way you did. Chad wishes he saw the future in some of the other bets. I do too, by the way. Pointsbet, see the future with us. We're the future tonight. We're winning. Pointsbet. You can join us, outkick.com/bet. The perfect moment, exclusively first-time PointsBet users. Grab this unique offer. Right now, new PointsBet users get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting outkick.com/bet. Outkick.com/bet. You complete the registration process with PointsBet. You make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, that's when your second-chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Outkick.com/bet is where you go to snag this offer. Cowboys and Chargers in Los Angeles for Monday Night Football. Right now, the Cowboys favored by 1.5 on the road. Chargers coming off their bye, and the Cowboys coming off a beatdown in San Francisco. Back-to-back road trips.
I am going with Cowboys. I think they get it done tonight, Hutton. I'm so beaten. With all these. Let's get it over with.
So
Cowboys.
There's one prop bet I like for Dallas, and that's Tony Pollard over 66.5 rushing yards. Minus 120 on the return, by the way.
Listen to Hutton, everyone. He knows.
Take the over in this. He's gone over the number of 66.5 in 3 straight games. That's even against San Francisco's defense, and that is tonight against the Chargers' defense. I like the over point total in the game, which is over under 51 points. I know the under's been the play in the NFL. Not all of them. I think the Chargers will actually score some points tonight, believe it or not. And if I'm believing that, I think Dallas will too, based on that awful defense for Los Angeles. I'm taking the over 51 and over 66.5 yards for Tony Pollard. And I'm even throwing in, I'm taking the money line on the Chargers. Just how the season has been, and especially week 6. Normally, I'm with you, Chad. I'm taking Dallas. But that's not how this week has gone. And Kellen Moore, you laughed at this, but he's facing his former team. It's the offensive coordinator revenge game tonight.
It's a big revenge game.
And I like Justin Herbert more than I like Dak Prescott.
I'm doing everything you just said, Hutton.
Okay.
except I'm going
Chargers.
Cowboys.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm going
that's fair.
Cowboys money line. So if they win by 1, I'm covered also. But you said over 66.5.
That's what I have
or
it
66. And
I'm also taking the over 51 points.
Okay.
66.5 yards for Tony Pollard.
You know what? It's time to win. It's finally time to win for me, for everyone.
Mac Jones did not allow bettors to win. He's costing more than just 1 week, I'm sure, with some of the numbers that have been out there for New England. He's got a great throw, by the way, to Devontae Parker, who just drops it. He's got 2 defenders in the proximity, and he drops the pass exactly where the ball needs to be, and Parker ends up dropping the perfect teardrop right into the bucket. But he took a safety to end the Patriots' chances of winning, and then if you're looking to cover for New England, that's not the way to do it for all the sports bettors. If you had Patriots getting 3 points, you didn't like the fact that they initially took the safety on purpose in order to allow them to get the ball and potentially get a stop and get it back for the win.
I really do wonder, Malik Cunningham now, what does that mean for the Patriots? How much longer is this going to go on? Or is it just ride it out until the end and hope Mac Jones gets better?
But Jones was pretty good yesterday.
Okay.
Well, I say he took it on purpose. They got backed up, and Crosby ends up getting the sack with Jones. He was not the reason why they lost. even in a week where he's throwing the ball well, his receivers aren't catching the football. Meanwhile, across on the other side of things, you have the Raiders who are putting up numbers against Belichick, including Josh McDaniels, who is now 3-0 for his career, 2-0 in the last 2 years against the GOAT. Doesn't happen often. Because the previous coach to have that type of start as a head coach against Belichick, that coached for Belichick, was Dave Wanstead.
Ooh.
Been a while.
Not good.
If you're one of the other coaches who he brought back for maybe to call plays for Mac Jones, you didn't have a very good record head-to-head against Bill Belichick. Now's the time to get him. Take advantage.
That was 3 hours we just did. 3 full hours of programming.
Live stream.
You're welcome, everybody.
See it on demand right now on YouTube.
We'll be right back
and all your
tomorrow
social
with
media
more.
platforms.
3 hours every day.